Sorry for the delay, some technical problems. Tonight's meeting of Monroe Township Board of Education is now in session. I'd like everyone to please rise and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Gorski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Armenio.
Here.
Mr. Chiarella.
Here.
Mrs. DeMayo.
Here.
Mrs. Koloponowicz. Mr. Nikitinsky.
Here.
Valori.
Here.
Mr. Ryder.
Here.
Ms. Siegel.
Here.
Mr. Tofano.
Here.
Mr. Rutsky. Mr. Board President, you have a quorum present.
Good.
In accordance with the provisions of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law, the Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting.
Everybody needs to mute their microphone.
Okay. I'll read the statement again. Could everybody please mute their microphone? In accordance with the provisions of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law, the Monroe Township Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted September 11th, 2020 at all schools, the Home News Tribune, the Cranberry Press, and filed with the clerk of the municipality.
Thank you, Mr. Gorski. Before we begin, I just want us to join me in something a little special. 19 years ago, on September 11th, Monroe suffered a horrible loss as 14 residents and their relatives perished in the attack on our country. I'm asking that you join me in a moment of silence in their memory and all others that perished that day. Thank you. Could move on. Approval of minutes. Can I have a motion to approve the Public Board of Education minutes, August 26, 2020?
So moved.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any question? All right. I can't hear you, Michelle.
Which minutes are we on?
The Board of Education, not closed session. Okay.
I did.
Okay. Any opposed? Abstentions? Recusals? All right. Can I have a motion to approve the closed session minutes of August 26th, 2020?
So moved.
Who seconds? Mr. Tufano seconds. Mr. Mayo moved it. Any discussion?
On the closed session?
Yes.
Yes. Can you hear me?
I can now.
Okay. Michelle Arminio, I believe that there are some things missing on the closed session. I did write to the administration before the meeting. I was told that my recollection was incorrect, but just so we know why I'm voting no, I believe one of our board members asked for additional data in our closed session, and it's not present on this closed session minutes for approval.
Aye. Aye.
I am Michelle Arminio.
Andy, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. No. Can you hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we have two opposed. Nick and Nick. Okay. Motion passes. Motion passes. Okay. And now we have a presentation by our New Jersey School Board Rep, Mary Ann Friedman, concerning board and district goals. Oh, I don't see her on here.
I'm here.
Oh, hi, Mary Ann. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you for having
there you
me,
are.
everybody, tonight. Thank you for inviting me.
I can't hear her.
Mr. Gross, can you make it possible for me to share my screen? Oh, there we go. Okay, are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
The PowerPoint? Okay, great. So thank you for inviting me in. I hope this finds you all safe and well, along with your families. I hope everybody's doing okay. I hope that the transition back to school, in whatever form that may have been, has gone smoothly. And I was asked tonight to facilitate your goal setting session. And so most of you will remember we've done this before over the past, I think this is the 4th year that we're doing this together. So this is our remote goal setting session, and a goal without a plan really is just a wish. And goals really are the foundation for effective policy development, effective optimizing your resource allocation. It's very important for program evaluation and planning. The superintendent's evaluation, as you know, the superintendent is evaluated. There's an entire component that's on the progress towards the district goals, effective communication, accountability, and continuous improvement. And these are the 4 different types of goal areas that we recognize. There are district goals that everybody owns, and they have to do with program and instruction, staffing, personnel, professional development, facilities, finance, usually communication and community engagement. And everybody owns those. So while we're going to develop those collaboratively tonight, after tonight, the superintendent, it's her responsibility to implement the action plans for those and to achieve those goals. But the board's responsibility still is maintained in providing the resources to help the superintendent achieve those goals. Board goals have to do with process and procedure and governance. And then superintendent goals are generally personal and professional. They are sometimes derived from the previous year's, from last year's evaluation. And then merit goals are contractual and are optional. So there's a waterfall effect, or what I like to call a cascading effect of goals. And that has to do with your strategic plan, which then cascades down to your district goals, which cascades down to your board goals, your administrator's goals, then your building goals and department goals, especially in a district your size. That goes down to the staff SGOs, the staff PDPs, all of which really do ultimately flow into student achievement and improving student achievement for all of your students. So what we want you to consider in district goal development really is a vision for the district, your mission for the district, your strategic plan, any data that you've acquired, and previous goals that have been achieved and or are in progress. So your vision statement is the Monroe Township Board of Education commits itself to all children by preparing them to reach their full potential and to function in a global society through a preeminent education. Your mission statement is the Monroe Public Schools, in collaboration with the members of the community, shall ensure that all children receive an exemplary education by well-trained, committed staff in a safe and orderly environment. Your strategic planning goals have been, the current ones that are in place, have been curriculum and instruction, and you can see these here, community engagement and business partnership, finance and facilities, technology and the arts, and communication. And your district goals for last year that we developed were engaging the school community in the development of a strategic action plan for Monroe Township School District, develop a referendum project by working with the community using the latest enrollment projections to address student growth, and then to continue to focus on the whole child by providing resources to address the social emotional needs of students, professional development, and cultural awareness. So in taking those things into consideration, what I'd like to do is ask you to talk to me about some of your accomplishments. Are you able to see this Word document that I have up? Okay, talk to me about your account. Yes.
Screen is gray.
Screen is gray. Okay. Let's
Ms.
go
Friedman,
ahead.
I did put together a brief PowerPoint to go over the goals that we had, the district goals from last year.
Perfect.
If you wanted me to share that.
Absolutely. I will stop sharing mine.
Okay. So,
And
Mr. Gross, can I share?
give it
my
back to
screen?
you.
Okay. All right. Can you see my screen?
Perfect. Yes.
Okay. All right. So we did have the district goals, as Mrs. Friedman just shared, for last year. The first district goal was to engage the school community in the development of a strategic plan for Monroe Township School District. We did begin this process. We had 2 out of the 3 meetings for the strategic action plan, public meetings. One was held on January 14th. The other one was February 24th. Our third meeting was supposed to be the end of March, but due to the COVID health pandemic, we were not able to have our third meeting. So that goal, I would like for the board to consider that we continue that goal for this year, because I think this is an important goal and an important time for us to continue the action plan so we have a guidepost for our future. The second goal was to develop a referendum project by working with the community using the latest enrollment projections to address student growth. And again, we did go through the process of an ad hoc committee last year, up until the point where the ad hoc committee made a presentation to the Board of Education, and then it was put into the administrator's hands to take a look at the 3 options that the ad hoc committee came up with. And then at the May board meeting, I did present to the Board of Education and to the public the administrative recommendation for Plan B. But I also recommended at that time that we put the project on hold due to the health pandemic and what's happening with that. So again, this is an issue that has not gone away, and it's one that I think that we should consider for this year also. The third goal was to continue the focus on whole child by providing resources to address the social and emotional needs of students, professional development, and cultural awareness. As I presented last January, and then I also presented to the board in June, through the evaluation process, we met our goal, this goal. Through all of the activities, we had a tiered process where we had many activities and many subcommittees. A staff committee of over 75 staff members worked on this goal. So on this presentation, I've listed all of our outcomes for each of the major activities. So this is a goal that we have met. So, and I will put this presentation on the board agenda. I'm sorry, on the board website, district website tomorrow. So the proposed district goals that I would like to make for this year for the board to consider. The first one, again, is to finalize our strategic action plan process. The second one would be to continue to look at the referendum project and how we can best meet the needs for our enrollment projections. And then the third goal that I'm proposing is to revise as necessary and execute the Monroe Township School District Restart and Recovery Plan for the 2021 school year. This will include meeting all health and safety requirements in the New Jersey DOE Road Back document, assessing all students and addressing learning needs, and incorporating social emotional practices to support students, staff, and families. And that's all I have. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I will turn it back over to you, Marianne.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Am I? Okay. Okay. Is that large enough for you all to see? Okay. So I don't know if you would like to go through, what we typically do is go through your accomplishments over the past year. We talk about what's in progress and what needs to be continued. And I don't know if you'd like to go through that exercise. I always think it's a good exercise for the board to go through, because boards are used to hearing what's not going right and what challenges you have. instead of talking about the things that you accomplished over the past year. And I'm sure that there have been lots of accomplishments. I really do want to tip my hat to all educators, all administrators, and all boards. You literally turned on a dime in March. March 11th, 12th, we learned that this pandemic was in effect and that we were going from a full in-person teaching and learning environment to a full virtual teaching and learning environment. And I know that there were glitches undoubtedly along the way, but you all rose to the occasion and you all got that done. And while most of us, many of us, including myself, didn't expect to be out of school in the buildings, at least for the rest of the school year, you all made that happen. And so I thank you from all of us at NJSBA for accomplishing that and for continuing to look at the things that were going well and then the things that were challenging to you and making modifications so that they were better. Then in June, late June, very late June, you were asked by the governor to put together a plan for reentry, and you basically had about 3 or 4 weeks to do that. And the plan had to have some contingencies and things like that in it and some flexibilities. And it had some very specific things that you had to include, and then some things were not so specific. And you all came up with that plan by the beginning of August, had to submit that plan. And since then, even though a lot of districts had a hybrid plan to come back, have their students come back into school on alternate days and things like that with different cohort groups, things have been changing again and again and again. And many districts that had hybrid plans had to go to a full virtual plan. And unfortunately, this is something that none of us have gone through before. Even the people who are still alive that went through the pandemic in 1918 don't remember it because they were too young. So maybe that's a good thing. But we've all gone through this together and learned through it. The good news is that nobody had the magic wand to be able to just wave, and we all pretty much learned from each other. So I think moving forward, we have to be open to the flexibility again of being able to make quick turns. And you all went dark. Motion detector lights. Love those. But you may have to turn again on a dime, and you may have to do that multiple times through the school year. So would you like to go through the accomplishments, what's still in progress and what needs to be focused on? Or would you like to just have a conversation on what Dr. Alvick has presented to you as talking points for what she feels should be focused on in the upcoming year? It's really up to you, the board.
Mr. President, this is Andy Pelori. Can you hear me? I do have a couple of questions in terms of what Dr. Alvick presented and also on the areas of focus. The first question I have is on the goal number 1 about the community engagement. I heard Dr. Alvick say that we had 2 of the 3 meetings and the 3rd meeting is pending. So we partially achieved the goal, but not completely. I'm just wondering, how do you measure if you have successfully engaged the community? What matrix would we use to say that community has been engaged? It's my experience that there's no such thing as accomplishing it because people continue to tend that they're left in dark. There's no transparency and things like that, irrespective of how many meetings you have. So how do you measure that goal? That's my one question. The second one is in terms of the area of focus. We all know that the pandemic is not going to go away anytime soon, even if there's a vaccine for it. Most likely than not, we may be looking at the next semester also, possibly as a remote learning. Are we getting feedback from the public in some of the issues that they're having? I did hear from some of the residents telling me that the school day is much shorter. So I don't know if that's going to meet the requirement of the day of having the 180 days for the school year. And also there's a lot of printing involved, and some of these families don't have the printers readily available for them to commit to those as well. Generally, the consensus in the community is the fact that this year is not going to be instructionally as excellent as in-person excellence instruction would be. So those are the areas I think we need to focus on. So I just want to bring it to your attention. Thank you.
Well, I can say
Okay.
I can say that the day does count. It's a 4-hour session day in the morning with also the extra time in the afternoon. So the day does count toward the 180-day requirement. Printing, Mr. Ryback, I think you need to mute. Printing is, if that's an issue, I suggest the parents reach out to the school because that shouldn't have to be taking place. So I suggest they reach out to the school and the teacher. If there's something that's needed, we can do that at the school level. And I don't disagree that this is not an ideal year, but I know that our teachers are working hard. We're only on day 9 of this school year, and we are continuing to do, I know Dr. Lehman's going to share about a lot of the professional development that we've been offering our staff. So our teachers are working really hard to meet the needs of their students. Remember, the first few days of school are normally getting to know your students. Plus, we will also be doing the MAP testing again so that we can assess where our students are so that we can meet their needs that way also. And the MAP testing assesses on the standards. So we do have things in place as we move forward. And remember, we're only on day 9.
Thank you very much. And the first question that I had about the goals, how do you measure community engagement? Do you have some sort of a scale?
We didn't have a scale on measuring community engagement. Our goal was to actually have an action plan where we did have community involvement, which we invited everyone from the community in multiple ways to come to those action plan community meetings that Mrs. Friedman actually worked on with us. She facilitated. So we did have community engagement come for those first 2 meetings, and we're trying to figure out how we can do and working with school boards to how we can actually get to that 3rd meeting and get an action plan in place. So the goal is to have an action plan.
Thank you, Dr. Alwick. I appreciate your responses.
Mm-hmm.
And with each, if I could just add, with each of those meetings, of the 2 meetings that we had for strategic planning, we had about 50 people at both of those meetings. And there seemed to be a pretty good representation of the community and the staff members that were there and administrators that were there. And both of those outcomes, the meeting outcomes from meeting 1 and meeting 2, I believe are still up on the website. I did see them the other day, so unless they've been taken down, and I see Dr. Alvick shaking their head, yes, they're still there. So those are still there for people to be able to go back and look at. The first meeting was for Dr. Alvick to do a State of the Schools report, and she completed that. That's up on the website also. And then we had the attendees break into small groups and brainstorm on strengths and challenges of the district. And then for each of their small groups to come to consensus on a top 10 strengths and a top 10 challenges, much like David Letterman's top 10. Then the second meeting, we looked at visioning and to brainstorm on visioning and initiatives that they would like to see in the district. Broke people up again into small groups, different small groups than the previous meeting. And they came up with vision statements and also vision initiatives that they would like to see happen in the district. And both of those memos or both of those meeting outcomes in memo form are on the district website and have each small group broken up into what they each came out with, their consensus points, and then the common themes were at the end of the night on each of these. At the second meeting, also at the end of the second meeting, in identifying the common themes or the common threads, we came up with 4 different areas for goal areas. So we have that done already as well. So it's really just getting that last meeting together where we can bring community members back, have them, community members, staff, students, and we did have a couple of students, I believe, and administrators to come back and to really brainstorm on writing up goal statements for each of those goal areas, and then identify some objectives that they would like to see happen from that based on meeting 1 and meeting 2's outcomes. Then based on the goal statements and objectives, just like you would have done in your last strategic plan, the administration will put together action plans for those and present those to the board. And then you'll start working towards those strategic planning goals. Okay, so I hope maybe that clears up some of that strategic planning process. And unfortunately, the week after the world hit the pause button, we were supposed to have that 3rd meeting. and that obviously couldn't take place. So.
Thank you.
Any other board member have a question? Mr. Mayo.
No, I don't have a question. I just feel like, can you hear me? It would make sense to continue the process that we've already started instead of engaging in a new process, because we haven't been allowed to finish. And I think we should do that.
Mr. Ryback, thank you. Just one comment with the referendum with our District Goal 2. Not knowing how long the pandemic is going to impact our district financially, we may have to put this on hold longer than a year or 2 years. So I just wanted to make sure that we maybe add in somewhere that we continue to look at some of the positives that come out of remote learning, because there may be things that will help us with the facilities and take away some of that need with the facility. So I know there will be some great technological things that we learn through this process. So just to keep that in mind as we move forward.
If no one else on the board has any questions or comments, I do.
Mr. President, I just wanted to add to what my colleague Rupa Singhal said, and also use this extra time to do a little bit more detailed investigation when the time comes for us to have a referendum, so that we're much better informed and all the analyses are in our back pocket. So I strongly suggest that we continue down the path without completely pausing it.
I agree, absolutely, Andy. Dr. Alvik, I have a question. I noticed, and very happily, that I think in the first goal, you included the pandemic. And I think it's important to discuss, especially with the community, what we're doing and alleviate some of their fears and certainly answer some of their questions. There's a lot of misconceptions out there and a lot of concern and also a lot of positivity and support. I know you've been receiving that. And aside from that question, my next question for you is, will you be creating some sort of a timeline so people could see what we're expecting to do at what point?
Yes, so the administrative team did meet this week and started having those conversations about a timeline. So the goal is still the same as it was, as what was last communicated to everyone. The goal is for at the end of first marking period, all students will be coming back into the building. Obviously, this is dependent on a lot of things, specifically the health crisis as we move into that. I had shared with the community, with the board, the actual letter that was sent to the county superintendent with all of the specific details of why we weren't able to open in person in September and what we were doing in order to remedy those situations. Most of them have been met at this point. We do have the PPE. The one order that we were waiting for with regards to the wipes, which no one can get because apparently they're on back order till January. We've been working with Mr. Tague and with Dr. Lynch, who is an environmental consultant, to come up with other ways that we can deal with wipes. For example, kind of making our own type of a wipe in the district, using a bucket with our cleaners, specific cleaners that are approved by Dr. Lynch, so that we're able to clean desks and chairs in between classes. That was one of our concerns. The other concern is our HVAC systems and making sure that we're getting the correct MERV rated filter for the classrooms and identifying the classrooms in the buildings where there is no outside ventilation by a window. There is outside ventilation because it's ventilated through the HVAC system, and we're making sure that those dampers are open so that they get as much fresh air component in it as we should. Those filters are on order. They should be in sometime in October. So we are on track to be getting those. It's going to take about a week to a week and a half for our facility staff to get all of them replaced. The other issue that was identified in our plan is staffing. We are working through our HR department and our Director of Pupil Personnel Services, who is in charge of our medical accommodations for staff. And we are meeting with each staff member who have put in the paperwork because they weren't able to either come in or they needed some type of accommodation due to the health crisis, and identifying where we need staff and how we can make sure that we have enough staff in our buildings once we come back to school in November. So we are working through all of those processes. Within the next 2 weeks, I will have for the board a timeline that I will also be sharing with the Restart Committee. So we will have another Restart Committee meeting that I know several board members are on. And I will be sharing what the plan is. So as of right now, the plan is still the same. And we will be looking at utilizing the plans that were shared with parents at the beginning of August for a hybrid return in November. Hopefully, if we get all of those other things in place, we will actually start bringing back students prior to that November 16th, specific groups of students, special education, self-contained classes, English language learners, freshman enrichment students, students who are in need, who have been identified. We're hoping to be able to bring them back before November 16th. But we have to make sure that we meet those other requirements first, because health and safety comes first right now. Mm-hmm.
Okay, Marianne, it's all yours.
Okay, so can I take this then to mean that the board is okay and on board with the goals as the proposed goals for 2020, 2021 by Dr. Alvick?
Are we all in favor of what Dr. Alvick proposed? Anyone opposed to this? What, Michelle, did you want to say something, or is that you're opposed to it?
I just have a question in terms of the goals. I mean, my understanding is, shouldn't goals be over and above what the standard educational instructional standards are? I mean, or are we just saying that because of the pandemic, we're only going to be working on what's minimally expected?
Well, you want to answer that?
Well, I can tell you that this is the priority right now in the district, is making sure that we're meeting those health and safety requirements. The other pieces of that goal, which is the assessment, making sure that we're remedying or, working with students, giving them extra support for anything that they might have missed with all of the remote learning, and also working with the social emotional piece. We're actually, we've created another subcommittee of the whole child to look at resources that we can offer parents right now, because this is a difficult time for parents too, working at home with their children. So that's definitely above and beyond. But the whole restart piece is our priority right now.
Okay, thanks. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. One thing I could tell you is that with the increase of immigrant parents and a lot of students from the South Asian part of the world, some of them didn't have education here, especially in the high school or basic schooling system. So some of them find this to be really intimidating, and there's a lot of unknowns. So I humbly request the administration to look into possibly having a session to educate them on what to expect until the school is reopened to take the students on, not just with a section of the student population, but the larger group, so that folks would understand the implications and you kind of learn their expectations. So in terms of area of focus, I suggest that be an area of focus right now for 2020 and 2021.
Do you suggest embedding that into the third goal?
Yeah, if that makes sense, yes. But I think in general, people are looking for some of the information you're giving today, and maybe they have their own questions they would like to ask you because they don't know the process that well. And this is all new to everybody to begin with.
This is brand new to everybody. I'm not sure of the process myself. We're all working through this together and trying to make it work. But one of the pieces that we're definitely focusing on is the parents and trying to give them more information. So that was definitely part of an expectation of the goal.
Thank you.
So that may appear as one of the objectives.
I think we need to target the whole community, not just one community.
Dr. Alvick?
Yes, I think, I think you were muted, Steve, that's why. Yes, definitely, it's one community, so we need to focus on all of our families and all of our communities. And we've done that through some of our character education. One of the other goals that I was considering, you know, with in light of other situations that have been happening in our world recently, is also looking at the culture piece and the race and ethnicity piece. And that's definitely going to be a focus of things that we're doing in our district too. We're specifically right now at the high school, we've started a committee of students and staff members to take a look at race relations within our schools, because we think that that's important. We're also joining other schools throughout Middlesex County in something called a Day of Dialogue, which is having those conversations about race. So we've already signed up for that. Those will be held virtually in the fall. And it will be a group from our school along with other high schools and middle schools in Middlesex County that will be meeting to go through several days to have conversations. And we really want this to be led more by the students rather than the adults in the building. So that action plan of those programs will come out of the work that we're doing with the students.
Okay, so again, Mr. Ryback, because I can't see everybody, if you can just get a feel for whether everybody's good with and is okay with the goals that Dr. Alvick had proposed, and let me know, that would be great. And then Dr. Alvick, if you could send me that PowerPoint, I would appreciate it.
Favor of accepting Dr. Alva's plan, just raise your hand so maybe she could see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 2, 4, 6 in favor, right? Mr. Tufano, you're opposed? Okay, one opposed.
No, he's in favor.
Huh?
Steve, remember that Ken Chiarella is on the line.
I didn't see, how'd you vote on that?
Mr. Ryback, would it help if I took a roll call on that? This way we have it on record.
Yes, thank you. I apologize, Mr. Chiarella.
Okay, we're going to take a roll call now on accepting the goals as presented by Dr. Alvick. Mr. Chiarella? Yes. Ms. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Tufano? Yes. Ms. Arminio? I record that as a yes?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Ms. DeMayo?
Yes.
Mr. Pluri?
Yes.
Mr. Nikotinsky?
Yes.
Mrs. Kolopanowicz? Yes. Mr. Ryback? Board President, we have unanimous support for the goals.
Okay.
Okay, so now we'll move into, and I will type those up when Dr. Alvick sends me the PowerPoint, and I'll type all of this up as I always do in a memo for you that really memorializes this process and how we've gotten to this point. So the next thing will be that the superintendent and the administrative team will develop action plans for each of the district goals. And you'll see different objectives, major activities identified, who's responsible, what the resources are that are needed for those, usually time, people, or money, what the timelines are, when that individual activity is supposed to be completed, and then what are the indicators of success? How will we know? How will the board know that those that actual major activity has been accomplished? And then what you'll also need to do is decide with the superintendent how often you'd like to receive updates on the progress towards those goals. And we suggest 3 to 4 times a year. And so usually you would have your first update in November, then in January or February, and then in March, April, right before you start to do your evaluation of the superintendent. And the reason that we say that is because you need, first of all, the 3 to 4 times a year helps you to stay focused on the district goals. And it also helps your community to know that not only did you take the time tonight to develop these goals collaboratively and to have this conversation, which has been a very positive conversation, but that you're still focused on them. So you want there to be, brief presentations 3 or 4 times a year. You want one of those last ones to be right before you sit down to do the superintendent's evaluation, because that way you have the information that you need to determine whether those goals have been achieved, satisfactory progress has been achieved, or little or no progress has been achieved. So it's in the superintendent's best interest and in the board's best interest to hear an update right before you sit down to do the superintendent's evaluation. Then in June, you'll generally have your last update, which summarizes what's been accomplished over the course of the year. So that will need to happen after this. Then we'll go into your board goals for 2019 and 20. And if you remember, we're going to continue to evaluate and adopt a plan for enrollment growth and facility needs, continue professional development for board members to achieve board certification through NJSBA's Academy program. As of right now, you'll have 6.5 credits, which equals 6.5 hours. Tonight, you will get whatever time we have. An hour equals a credit. So you'll likely have another credit to that. So that would bring you down to 8.5 credits needed to achieve board certification. And if you have those credits completed by September of 2021, you would be awarded board certification in the fall of 2021. And then your last goal was to continue to improve communication amongst the board. So some of the things that we like for you to think about are really, what can the board do to be more effective in your responsibilities? So we ask you to think about board effectiveness, policy development, oversight and monitoring, ensuring comprehensive instruction and curriculum, and also communications, both internal and external. And then we have some sample goals here, which are completing the superintendent's evaluation within the statutory timeline. You guys are golden on that. You don't need to worry about that. Possibly reviewing your bylaws to review and revise and ensure that they're reflective of your current practices. Explore the option of committee of the whole versus separate committees. That's something that a lot of boards do. Some boards will read and discuss a book on leadership and how it's applicable to their governance. So is there anything, so my question would be, is there anything from last year's goals that you would like to continue with for the upcoming year, or would you like to develop different goals for the upcoming year?
Anybody? Can you hear? Am I coming out? Okay. Well, I'll say something. Well, I guess everyone's looking at it. I think that we really should support the strategic plan that Dr. Alvik set forth, because it doesn't include the pandemic and how we're going to be working through this pandemic. I think that we also can't forget about the growth, enrollment growth, and facility needs. And you said also the professional development. We need 8 more credits. That's something that we have to do. And I'm thinking of something else, boardsmanship, which I think may encompass how we interact and communicate with each other. And I know we'll be getting a new board in January, and but I know in the past that we've always seemed to have these problems. And I think if we could do something with boardsmanship, I think that might help this situation.
Mr. President, this is Andy Pelori. I agree with you about the boardmanship. I think that will certainly help a healthy Board of Education, which is what our taxpayers and the citizens are looking for. One other item that I do want to discuss and see if I can bring it to your attention, or the administration's attention, is the change in technology in terms of adopting some of the techniques with remote learning, and also with how to keep the facilities clean and pristine for our children not to be exposed to any kind of a health issue. I think somehow we need to stay on top of it, and we need to, I would like not to see our district be the guinea pig on anything, but I think we need to keep track of that and make sure that wherever it's been successful, we adopt those and implement those quickly for betterment of our students.
Thank you. Any other board member? Any other comment?
Mr. Ryback.
Chiarella, go ahead. Sure.
Thank you. With regards to goal number 1, I think we should keep that, but I think that we need to expand maybe what we're looking at. So, I know we were looking at a referendum and we were looking at additional facility needs, and obviously we still have those needs. But some things that have come to our attention over the last couple weeks, and that's unfair, that have come to our attention over the years, but in the last couple weeks they've really come to our attention with regards to the need for money and things like that. Is that I think we need to, with that goal number 1, look at the facility needs from a repair standpoint, as we've been doing, but prioritize them, and then maybe look at going for a much smaller referendum that would address some of those needs, like roof repair or replacement, and things like that, where we might not be able to do a $40 or $90 million referendum, but maybe we could do one for $2 million and get some of those needs addressed that are pressing, so that all of our buildings stay in top shape. And then the other part of goal 1 that I would like to add to would just be for us to look at, at some of the things outside the box that we could do with remote learning and things like that to help alleviate some of the facility needs that we currently have. That's it.
I think that you touched, can you hear me, Ken? I think you touched on something with remote learning. I think that, we may be changing instruction and schedules using remote learning. It may help us with overcrowding just by itself. So we have to wait and see what that looks like. Else, Mrs. Kalapanowicz.
I'd like us to continue with goal 2 also. And I know that it was a 2-year goal. I'm not sure that it's going to be able to achieve it this year. I don't know if we can add another year onto that, but bring boardsmanship into professional development and maybe have it into 2022, if that's possible.
I can look and see, because as you know, the credits accumulate over a 4-year period.
Right.
So credits will, if we go past 2021, and we can do that, I just need to see what will fall off. Okay, then from the previous year, because if we go into 2022, the last year that's in there now will fall off. So I'll look to see what those credits would be, and I'll include that in the memo. And then you can decide as a board whether you want to just go for this in 2021, or if you'd like to extend it to 2022. One of the boards that I work with, they also were really looking to achieve that goal this year by September, and they needed, I think, 9 credits. And so they had about 4 before the world went on pause on March 13th. And I spoke to them about it, and I said, you may want to, extend this into 2022. And they decided not to do that. And what they've done is they've met on different evenings with the board just for training for an hour. We've kept it to an hour. And we've met 4 or 5 times. And actually tomorrow night will be their last meeting that they'll get to their 16 credits. Tomorrow night, they'll actually have 16 and a half. So they've overshot the bow. But it is something that's possible. So what I'll do is in the memo, I'll let you know where your credits are now and what would fall off if you decide to extend to 2022. And then you all can have a conversation about that and just let me know. But I'm willing to do whatever you would like to do. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Mail?
Marianne?
Yes.
So my question for you is, because we've had to hit pause and basically for 6, 7, I don't know, it could be 8 months, we haven't been able to do any of this stuff. Is there a way that we could get an extension of the same amount of time that we've been on pause so we don't lose those credits that will drop off?
That's a great question. and I can ask that question. I probably won't have an answer for you until the end of next week or so. My next meeting will be, we just had a meeting this morning, our department, but I can certainly pose that question and see if that's something that would be able to be considered. And I think it's a great question. Thank you for asking it.
No, thank you for exploring it. I appreciate it.
I'd like to chime in. I think that's a very logical question. I think it's something that should be considered by Jersey school boards. And I think the state in itself is going to have to make some accommodations with some of their requirements because of what's going on.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Any other board member? All right, Marianne. Have the notes of what we were talking about for board goals?
Yes. So what I have is to continue. So the first goal would be to continue to evaluate and adopt a plan for enrollment growth and facility needs, possibly, and within that would be possibly addressing roof repair, replacement, things of that sort that could happen to address facility needs. Continue to support the strategic plan and the district's efforts through the pandemic. And then continue professional development for board members and achieve board certification. And that would include training on boardsmanship, maybe on team building, those kinds of things. And you would be able to pick, I'll send you the sampling of programs that we have again, so that you'll be able to pick and choose what programs you would like for me to come in and deliver. And keep in mind, if you have somebody from our policy department come in and speak to you, you would get credit for that. If you have somebody from our labor relations department to come in and speak to you about negotiations or salary guides or something like that, you would get credit for that as well. And if you had somebody come in and speak to you from governmental relations about advocacy, you would also be able to get credit for that. So it's not just me. You can have somebody else from the association come in and provide you with training that you would like, depending on the department, and you would still get credit for those things. So I'll be happy to type all of that up and send it to you tomorrow.
Terrific. Okay. Do you want us to vote on this? I think maybe Mr. Gorski, we could take a roll call vote to accept this.
And I'm sorry I can't type it for you, but for some reason my screen is not allowing me. I've not had this problem before. I'm usually able to minimize the PowerPoint and type in and then show it to you, but I can't do that. So if you want to wait for the wording to come to you and accept them, then that's fine also.
Mr. Ryback?
Mr. President, if I may.
Sure, Andy.
I think what Ms. Friedman is suggesting makes sense. I think we need to look at the final wording before we vote on it. And also, I made a request to add a goal number 4 to explore the latest technologies and the CDC guidelines to improve the safety of the facilities. If that can be added for the next year, that'll be good as well.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
Could you repeat that, please?
Go ahead, Andy. You repeat that. Repeat that for her.
I said let's wait until we hear back from Ms. Friedman on the exact wording of the 3 goals. I'll also add a goal 4 to explore all the innovative ways of doing the remote learning, and also how to improve the health and safety of the students in the school from a CDC perspective.
I have a question, Dr. Alvik. Is any of that included in your goals?
Yeah, that's included in the restart plan and what we got from the state, the NJDOE road back. That's included in what we're doing.
That's really more of a district goal because that's more of an administrative function. And I think that the first goal that we talked about, or that Mr. Ryback talked about, was supporting the strategic plan and the district's efforts in the pandemic. That would be covered in that the district board would be supporting the administration's efforts to reopen the schools in terms of in-person, student teaching and learning.
And that would be incorporated in that third district goal that I suggested too, the health and safety and returning students with assessment too.
Mr. Ryback?
Yeah, sure. Mr. Cello, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to back up what Mr. Filori said regarding that last point, because one of the things that we talked about at Focus Designs was that the footprint needs that we had would be upwards of $1 million or more. And that's something that, that's one of the things that would really, from what we learned, would really help us out. So I think if it's something that we need to look at seriously and incorporate, because again, like I said earlier, the need maybe for a smaller referendum or something like that would give us the ability to address that and add those crucial, health objectives to our agenda.
Okay. Marianne?
Got it. That would be part of that second, that first goal from last year, to continue to evaluate and adopt a plan for enrollment growth and facility needs. So that could be part of that plan. And remember, last year, what you wanted to do was to possibly take a look at investigating alternative actions and solutions, and that the action plan items may have included development of a plan B. So that's something that, a lot of district and board goals really did hit the pause button on March 13th. Okay, you had to do what you had to do. You had to accomplish what you had to accomplish. And I'm sure at the time that the pandemic hit, the referendum was probably one of the last things that you were thinking about, because you were trying to implement full virtual teaching and learning at that point. So, and then also the economy. And with the economy going in the direction that it did, you decided, I'm sure, that, looking at a referendum right now was not probably viable for your community. So those are some things that I think you can consider within that goal area, within that goal statement, to evaluate and continue to review plans for enrollment growth and facility needs. And then those will become actionable items underneath those goals in your action plans, because what you will want to do also is develop an action plan for your board goals. And a lot of times, boards are hesitant to move into that action plan stage. And so what I always suggest is that when you ask your superintendent to provide you with updates towards the district goals, that you as a board provide updates towards the board goals. Because the time that you're spending tonight and that you spend every year to develop these is really something you don't want to lose focus on. And if you continue to report on them when the superintendent reports out on the district goals, you won't lose your focus on these things. And hopefully, with whatever happens with the pandemic and with being virtual now, and the board has been doing everything virtually since March, it's been very difficult to establish relationships with each other, to really nurture those relationships. This has been a really tough time. But I think for most boards, they're starting to get the hang of the virtual meetings. And so one of the things that you can do is you can ask your committee chairs to sit down at a meeting, and as long as it's not a quorum of the board, your numbers, and to come up with action plan items for each of these goals. And I'll send them to you tomorrow. You'll get the memo tomorrow. And then please, take a look at them and make sure that the wording fits what you want it to be, okay? Because these are your goals for you, your board goals for you. They're not mine for you. I'm literally just trying to be your scribe for the night. So make sure that they do reflect what we talked about tonight. And then you can have some committee chairs sit down and develop the action plans for these, and then present them to the board for their review and approval. And then you would consider, you would continue to have updates on them as you have district goals. Does that make sense?
I think so. Okay. I see a lot of heads nodding positively.
Okay.
So yes.
I can only see yours. So you'll develop action plans for the board goals. You'll implement those action plans, and then you'll establish again those dates for frequent progress. There really is nothing more critical to a board of education and to a district than developing goals and creating action plans for them and implementing those. Because really without that, you have no ability to move forward. Everything is just a guess. This gives you the plan to be able to do that. And so I want to thank you for all that you do for your students and your communities. And I appreciate everything that you do. I hope that you'll all stay well and healthy. And if anybody has any questions, I can take them now, or I know you have a meeting to get to. So if you'd like, you can also send me an email, whatever your pleasure is.
Thank you, Mary Ann. I prefer the email so we can move along with the meeting. I want to take a moment and thank you so much for facilitating this meeting. You're always so amenable and so professional. And on behalf of the board, we appreciate everything you do.
Thank you very much. I just need to make sure that somebody else has taken control again, so that when I leave, I don't throw you all off.
Okay, ready to come back to me? Okay, good. Thank you. Next item on the agenda.
Everybody.
Good night, Mary Ann. Thank you again. Next item on the agenda is committee reports. Any committee chair ready to report? Raise your hand, Mr. Mayo.
The curriculum committee met tonight and we reviewed 3 curriculum documents. The first one was the Advanced Placement Statistics Mathematics course. This curriculum document is aligned to the College Board syllabus approved through the AP audit. Students are introduced to the major tools for collecting, analyzing, and drawing conclusion from data. 4 major themes: exploring data, sampling and experimentation, probability and simulation, and statistical inference. Projects give students the experience to create and develop statistical studies, to transfer data collected both numerically and graphically, to draw conclusions in real-life scenarios. Presentations are to be professional, use proper statistical data, analyze sources of error, and convey results. The next document was Honors American Studies 1. It's from the Social Studies Department. This is an updated interdisciplinary course that links historical developments in the U.S. during the 18th and 19th century with primary sources, diverse literature, and perspectives written during the time period. Engage in assessments such as the Constitution as a living document allow students to engage in activities that broaden their understanding of historical events and make connections to events happening today. And the last document was Unified Family and Consumer Sciences, Applied Arts and Careers Technology. One of 4 unified electives: Unified Visual Arts, Unified Careers Technology, and Unified Music. The redesigned curriculum explores a more comprehensive approach towards exploring life and consumer sciences. Units are driven by a blend of the newly revised New Jersey Student Learning Standards for Career Readiness, Life, Literacies, and Key Skills, the National FACS Standards, and the New Jersey Student Learning Standards for Social and Emotional Learning. The 4 macro units: social and emotional and professional evolution, post-secondary readiness, family science and home economics, and culinary sciences. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other committee chair? Mr. Poluri?
Mr. Board President, members of the board, and the public. As a matter of fact, I have 2 separate reports that I'm going to give. One is for my colleague Paul Rutsky, who is unable to be here, and he also was unable to attend the committee meeting for the finances. I'm pleased to report that to increase the bandwidth of accessibility and for easy connection, and also to address some of the DDoS attacks that we're having, we have come to terms with Comcast in providing a larger bandwidth. And I request Mr. Gorski to kind of explain that item.
Mr. Ryback?
Yeah, sure, Mr. Gorski.
Yes, regarding that agenda item, as we discussed in committee, the district has been over time experiencing DDoS attacks, and that's where an outside party is sending a lot of traffic to the network, and it is tying up the email server and competing with bandwidth that's being shared throughout the district. In addition to that, the new platform that we have with virtual learning and digital learning requires additional bandwidth from what we projected. The amount of Zoom meetings and so on is drawing too much. So to be more comparable with our similar type of school districts, Mr. Feldman recommended increasing the bandwidth, which is an approximate $38,000 increase per annum. However, Mr. Feldman and I are going to go through the technology budget and eliminate some items that are of lesser value, such as a redundant second antivirus program, in order to make this budget neutral, so there will be no additional funds required. It gives us a little bit of room for growth as far as bandwidth goes. It was not the platform per se that Mr. Feldman had initially requested, but it's satisfactory for the time being and gives us a little bit of room to afford us the additional students that we project for 2 to 3 years to come.
Thank you, Mr. Gorski. I guess we're going from under 3 gigabytes to 7 gigabytes approximately. Is that correct?
That is correct. It varies per school, but that's the total. That's correct.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And that should help even the parents and the students at home. The second item is the USDA announcement regarding the school district's nationwide waiver to allow summer food service program. Can you please explain that and how it's going to work, please?
Mr. Ryback?
Absolutely.
Ms. Mitrasak, our food service director, and I received guidance from the USDA last week that there was going to be federal funds available to provide free lunches for all students who request. And as long as federal funds are available or through December 31st, 2020. So Monroe Township has always had traditionally low free and reduced lunch percentage usage here in the district. It ranges between 4 and 7%. Right now it's about 5%. So Ms. Mitrasak is going to send out additional information as soon as we receive more guidance from the USDA and the New Jersey Child Nutrition Department, instructing parents of how to apply and their eligibility for free lunch. One of the differences is that currently we are delivering free lunches by utilizing our idle bus fleet that has to be run every few days anyway. So it gives good exercise to the bus fleet and delivers lunches. With the expected number of participation coming up, we will no longer be able to deliver lunches, and we are working out plans to have parents pick them up, not in the schools where we're trying to keep visitors out, but at some location on the side or the back of the school that will be convenient for everyone. If a parent, for any reason, cannot come to the school district to pick up a lunch, or if a child is left without the ability to come and get it, administration will deliver the lunch to their home as we do now in those limited circumstances.
Thank you, Mr. Gorski. And I know Ms. Mitrasak said that she possibly is going to put a Google Doc so that the parents can sign up for their kids' meals, and that's underway, I assume, correct? I'm going to give an update on the audit quickly, and then I'm going to come back to you, if that's okay, Mr. President, to discuss the excess surplus. In terms of the audit is ongoing for the fiscal year ending on June 30th. The several items have been completed. Despite this state initiative to extend the deadline of audit from December 5th to sometime in March, I think it's still, I think our auditing company assures us that they're going to be finished before the December 5th deadline. So that's the update. But so far, whatever has been audited came back with the flying colors, thanks to Mr. Gorski and Laura Allen and others in our district office. So thank you very much for that. We're on par to submit it on time. So the last item from the Finance Committee is the discussion on the preliminary calculations of the excess surplus. Mr. President, if you could allow Mr. Gorski to speak on that.
Absolutely.
Thank you. As we presented at Finance Committee, we showed a chart of the excess surplus here in the district for the last 4 years. We had $6 million of surplus, which decreased to approximately $5 million of surplus. It then dropped to $3.4 million of surplus, which is indicative of a trend where the demand on the district for financial resources is exceeding the inflows coming from the ability to grow the tax levy cap. So we are bleeding our excess surplus, and we've talked about this over a few years now. This year, because of district initiatives to save money and through consortiums and purchasing decisions, as well as some savings provided by the closure of the school buildings, which we talked about previously. The excess surplus figure has ticked up to $5.1 million of excess surplus, which is right at the 4-year average. This figure, however, although it's improved over last year, certainly, and we appreciate that, is not a relief where we can all exhale, because next year in the 2021 budget, we will have $1.5 million less bank cap to apply to the tax levy because the district has no more bank cap available. In addition to that, because Falcon Care was closed, we cannot transfer $600,000 of unrestricted net income from those funds to support the general fund. So that's a $600,000 shortfall. In summary, we expect that when we set next year's budget, we're going to be $300,000 to $400,000 less than we had this year, and that's manageable. And it's also not anticipating any increase in state aid.
Thank you, Mr. Gorski. And that's the preliminary calculation, or is it the final numbers at this point?
That's unaudited preliminary calculation, but we want to get this information to all the stakeholders as soon as possible.
Excellent. That's a better news than saying that we're going down the same slippery slope that we've been going for the last couple of years. That's all I have from the Finance Committee. Mr. President, I also have the Education Advocacy Committee. I promised to finish it off in a couple of minutes, if that's okay.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. As we all know, there were no further cuts from the state in terms of the state aid for this year. So that's a good news coming out of the state. And there was budget hearings that took place and about a week ago, and the testimony that was to be given was to be in writing via email. So we discussed that, and even before we started discussing it, kudos to Dr. Alwick for start writing up a letter kind of explaining our situation to the legislators, both to the Senate and Assembly, and that letter was sent out. And also a letter was sent out by the board president and board vice president, and some of us wrote our own testimonies as private citizens to explain the situation that Monroe Township in. I feel personally that this is a rock that we need to soften, and every drop of water helps. So we continue to do what we need to do. The second item we discussed at the Education Advocacy Committee was planning for the legislative meeting. I reported this at the last meeting. We kind of had a further discussion that it's going to be held on October 6th. I reached out since the Education Advocacy Committee meeting on September 8th. I got confirmation from Assemblyman Dan Benson that he will join. I also got a confirmation that Wayne D'Angelo will not be able to join. And I left a couple of messages for Linda Greenstein. If she's going to be available, this is going to be a virtual meeting. And we requested our IT to set up an email so that not just the board members, but also the public can write questions and send it to them. I guess once we hear back from all the legislators, even if 2 of them come, I propose with the approval from the rest of the board and the board president that we continue to stay with the October 6th date and have this meeting to get at least some answers. So that's the report from the Education Advocacy Committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pelori. Any questions for Mr. Pelori? Ms. Siegel, did you have your hand raised? Oh. Ms. Arminio, did you have?
Yeah, so this meeting is going to be a public meeting where the board is going to have a quorum?
That's correct.
Okay, so and the purpose of this meeting is to what?
The purpose of the meeting is to better understand why the funding that we feel that we deserve is not coming our way. What should we expect from the state? Any questions that we have that we need to ask the legislators? And in terms of, Michelle, I'm sorry, in terms of having the quorum, one of the things we discussed was, as a matter of fact, the October 6th is actually the scheduled Education Advocacy Committee meeting. So it may not be a full quorum. It may be just the committee members, but the other members of the board can join virtually.
I'm sorry, Ms. O'Neill. It definitely was said that it was going to be the committee members.
That's correct.
So you're saying only the committee members will be able to attend?
Mr. Ryback?
You're muted.
I recall that the committee had suggested to invite the legislators to the next committee meeting first. And if that was a successful endeavor, then open it up to the full board meeting perhaps and discuss that at committee. But the first step was to invite the legislators to the committee.
Okay, well, my first concern is that it's a meeting that's sort of only for certain attendees. Secondly, I would be happier, and I think it would be a more genuine meeting if it were done after the elections, because we've invited these people on a regular basis right before significant elections, and we still have really not gotten anywhere from them. So I don't want this to be a forum for candidates prior to elections. So can we make this after and have it in November? So to me, it would be a more genuine opportunity. And the third thing that I'm concerned about is that there's a screening of questions. So the questions may be softball questions, and we don't want to embarrass or humiliate anyone, but I think the public has a right to ask very serious and severe questions if they have to. So I have an objection to the way this is handled. I actually have a fourth thing. My fourth thing is, why do we have to have a specific separate email? Will the whole board be apprised of what's coming in through that email?
Mr. Gorski, you want to answer that? And I was going to say, it just makes it easier for the public that's going to send in questions to have that, so it doesn't get mixed in with other emails. It's more direct.
And who will have access to that?
Mr. Ryback?
Mr. Polari?
Mr. Ryback, may I explain that?
Yes.
Yes. What the committee recommended was a separate segregated email account address, which has been set up thanks to Mr. Gross. And we sent that information out to the public already, soliciting public questions. They are not being screened or censored in any way. The two people who have access to the email now are Dr. Alvick and myself, and we will simply compile the number of questions and submit them to the committee. We were going to also offer to the committee members or any board member that if you would like, you could be CC'd on the emails going to this new account so that you could have them for your own pleasure.
Mr. Gorski, I just want to correct that it has not been made public yet because we were waiting for Mr. Polloy to confirm that they were coming.
That's
correct.
It
has not been made public yet.
Mr. President, if I may,
Absolutely.
I want to step back for a sec. Am I muted? No, right? I want to step back for a second. As a responsible board member, we got to be very careful in what we say at the public meetings. Making this into another political showcase is absolutely ludicrous if anybody's suggesting it. First and foremost is the people who we're inviting are the people who are willing to come back in June or July, but we wanted to wait until the school opened up, and it was a suggestion from the other board members to wait this long. That's number one. Number two is, it's not a political stunt like some people are trying to allude it to, because none of these candidates are running for any position in November. So let's watch what we're saying in the public forum. And about softball questions, no, there's not going to be a softball question. Any question that comes up, we're going to consolidate them because we have 1 hour time frame. We want to make sure that all the questions are captured to the extent possible, and I'd ask them the question. So I really request the rest of the board members to work with us and make sure that this is a success for the community and not make into a political game. Thanks very much.
What I'd like to know is what will constitute a success. I mean, the only success that I can imagine is that we get more funding from these people. So my thought is, what is the purpose? What is the, the matrix, as Mr. Kalari has often said, about success?
Ms. Sominia, for the interest of time and moving along, I think right now success would be the meeting itself, what comes out of the meeting itself, and the relationships that are developed, that kind of answers to our questions, and we see what we have moving along. Maybe a subsequent meeting can happen after that, but right now the committee is set on this date. This is when we're having it, and Mr. Pelori explained everything. So I want to move on right now. Any other committee?
Good evening. The policy committee met last Wednesday evening, and we reviewed several policies and regulations that the committee has moved forward for first read for tonight's agenda. The first policy that we reviewed was Policy and Regulation 2361, Acceptable Use of Computer Networks, Computers, and Resources. Most of the changes that are in this policy are in the policy to include use of Chromebooks, not just iPads. The word computer devices has been added throughout the policy, and in the term computer devices, this collectively includes iPads, Chromebooks, and laptops. This policy has been updated to include K through 8, not just the high school. There are changes in the verbiage from Monroe Township High School to district or to school. There are some minor changes to the regulation, which are noted in the regulation itself. Policy 2431.3, Heat Participation Policy for Student Athlete Safety. This is a mandatory policy that the statute has changed. The statute is mandated for all school districts with student athletes in grades 9 through 12 and provides an option for districts to expand such provisions to student athletes in other grade levels. We'll be following the same option for grades 7 and 8. This policy has been reviewed and approved by our school physician. The policy guide requires compliance with NJSIAA's current heat participation policy and preseason heat acclimatization policy. So if and when NJSIAA revises these policies, this board policy 243.3 will not require revisions and readoption. The next policy we reviewed was policy 3425, work-related disability pay. We currently have this policy in place for our non-certificated staff, so we have created the parallel policy for certificated staff. The last policy review, Policy and Regulations 5330.04, administering an opioid antidote. This is a mandated policy and regulation and must be adopted by the board. The change on the policy has been made to include grades K through 12 based on the feedback from the nurses. This policy and regulations has also been reviewed and approved by the school physician. The new statutes were effective December 1st, 2018, and at the time, Strauss Esme developed policy and regulation guides 5330.04 that aligned with the language in the statutes. The revised policy and regulation guides provide greater detail regarding the physician's standing orders, the training requirements for those employees designated to administer the opioid antidote, the replacement of the opioid antidote upon expiration, the administration, and the limitation of liability attached with administering the antidote. And then, the committee did agree to move all of these to first read on tonight's agenda. And the last item we reviewed was our education piece. I had gone through some school board documents and came across this one document, the most difficult things to learn. So experienced board members from across the nation were asked to identify the most difficult lesson they had to learn about board service. Here's what they said most often. Number 1, determining your function on the board and how to accomplish it effectively. Number 2, that no matter what you think you know about board service when you first come on the board, you still have a lot to learn. 3, learning to acknowledge publicly that you have no power or authority as an individual board member, that only the full board can make policies and decisions for the district. Number 4, recognizing the difference between setting policy the board's job, and administering the schools, the CSA's job. Number 5, that you must think deeply and sometimes accept board decisions that are contrary to your own beliefs. Number 6, that you must represent all the students. Your decisions must be made in the interest of the total school system and not made solely for special groups of interest. Number 7, learning how to respond appropriately to the complaints and concerns of citizens, school administrators, and other staff, learning to follow the chain of command. Number 8, that change comes slowly. Number 9, that you can't solve everyone's problems by yourself. Number 10, that boardmanship means being able to hold the minority viewpoint when voting on an issue, then openly supporting the majority vote in your community. 11, discovering how schools are funded. And that concludes our policy report.
Mr. Tufano?
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was muted. Mr. Tufano?
The BG&T meeting took place on September 9th, 5 p.m. First item on the agenda was the annual review of Oak Tree solar program. Administration provided a handout of the financial performance of the solar system at Oak Tree since its inception. That program has given us a lot of free electric and actually making us some money. Mr. Gorski, would you mind giving a little more detail about the SRACs and what they're profiting for us?
Go ahead, Mr. Gorski.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Tufano. The Solar Renewable Energy Credit Program enables the district to sell solar energy back to the utility companies that we generate from our field at Oak Tree School. And the amount of money that we're able to sell each of these SREC, SREC, Solar Renewable Energy Credit, on the open market varies. When there was federal subsidies for this program, back when we opened the school and cut the ribbon, we were bringing in about $100,000 a year from revenues on the program. It went to a low of about 20,000, and if I recall correctly from Mr. Tague's presentation, right now we're about $40,000 to $50,000 of revenue from that program. The good news is that the investment that the district and the taxpayers made in the solar energy fields at Oak Tree is being paid back, and in the next few years, we will have a complete return of capital on those solar investments. So that's a very good program.
Thank you, Mr. Gorski. Mr. Tufano, anything else?
Yeah, the second on the agenda was the potential HVAC upgrade project for COVID response. Administration provided handouts of budget proposals from D&B Engineering for proposed bipolar ionization equipment installations. Also, the committee requested that administration develop a list of infrastructure priorities, particularly HVAC at the schools, for review and consideration at the next meeting for use with budget development. Furthermore, the committee requested that either the board or the administration pursue donations from local developers towards the aforementioned projects. I believe our board vice president wrote a letter to...
No, I didn't.
I'm sorry.
I wrote the letter. I didn't.
Yeah. You want to tell us a little bit about that, Steve?
Well, I'll do that during my report.
Okay. All right. Number 3, the update on the Oak Tree Stopgap project. Administration provided a brief overview of the status of construction, noting delivery of classroom light fixtures remain on back order. Facilities maintenance staff are in the process of completing drywall, painting, ceilings, and finish work. Jerry saved us a lot of money with that project by not outsourcing it. Number 4, update UST replacement project at transportation. Administration provided an overview of the project, noting that we are now substantially complete and scheduling the final punch list. There are 3 light fixtures brackets on back order, which we received will be installed and final permits closed out. The tank has been refilled and is active for district and fire department vehicles. Number 5 on the agenda was the update wheelchair lift replacement at Applegarth. Administration provided a brief overview of the status of construction, noting that the permit approval for the New Jersey Department of Community Affairs, Division of Codes and Standards, Bureau of Voter Services, elevated safety unit has not yet been received. Once this received permit will be released and construction will be completed. That's all I have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tufano. Any questions from board members for Mr. Tufano?
I have a question, Mr. Ryback, but not for Mr. Tufano. I have one for Mrs. Siegel, if I may.
Okay, sure. Go ahead.
What on the antidote and who could the rules for who could administer who could give out that shot? Is that a certified? Does that have to be a certified position, or is there a certification required in order to do that? Is it like the school nurse?
I'm gonna turn it over to Dr. Aldick to answer.
Dr. Aldick.
It does not have to be a trained nurse. It can be anyone who is trained, and we will be working with our school physician to identify what the training protocols will be and who will be trained in each school.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. Any other board member? Mrs. Kalapanowicz?
Thank you, Mr. Ryback. The Personnel Committee met on September 9th, and I have two small items. The first is that all of our substitutes in the district will have training through Google Classroom on how to virtually teach in the classroom, so that if there is a need for a substitute teacher, they will be able to teach virtually. So that is good for students who might have a different teacher because of need. And the second is that we went over the job description for the Director of Food Service and made several changes to it. And that revised document is on the agenda this evening for approval by the board. And that's my report.
Okay, any question from board members for Mrs. Kalapanowicz? Okay, not seeing one. I thank all the committee chairs, and we can move on to the public forum. This is for agenda items only. You have 4 minutes. I ask you to state your name and address. Mr. Gross?
Mr. Board President, we have Pradeep Neelam. Pradeep, state your name and your address.
Hi, this is Pradeep for Jake Place. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, welcome, Pradeep. We hear you.
Thank you. I have two-part question. First part is like why we don't have the school enrollment numbers, the student enrollment numbers in the agenda. Question number 2 is related to the Comcast upgrade contract that was discussed. And with Comcast, we had 2 earlier incidents happened, and why didn't we look for other alternatives like Verizon? That's my questions.
Thank you. Dr. Alvick, you want to take them?
So in the board agenda each month, it's the enrollment from the previous month. And since last month was August and we didn't have students in the school, that's why you don't see the enrollment numbers in the July or in the August or the September board agenda. However, during my superintendent's report, I will give you the current enrollment figures for each school. Do you want me to do that now, Mr. Minister?
Yes.
Okay. So currently, our current enrollment as of today in each of our schools, Monroe Township High School has 2,475 students. Monroe Township Middle School, 1,781 students. Applegarth School, 451. Barkley Brook, 286. Brookside, 400. Mill Lake, 449. Oak Tree, 768. And Woodland School, 311. That's our current enrollment in our schools right now.
Mr. Ryback?
Yes, absolutely. Just a second question for him.
May I address Mr. Malam's second question regarding Comcast?
Yes.
The school district and the Board of Education has authorized us to participate in a purchasing consortium for utilities known as ACES, and it's run through the Middlesex Regional Ed Service Commission. Comcast has won the bid through that consortium, and they are an approved vendor who provides very low prices to school districts in the county, far lower than we could get if we went out to bid on our own. So that's why we are purchasing from Comcast exclusively, and we didn't open it up for public bidding. It was already done by the commission.
Thank you, Mr. Gorski. Next person, please.
Mr. Board President, we have Prakash Parab. Please state your name and your address.
Can you hear me?
Yes, welcome, Prakash.
Hello,
Yes.
Steve, our president, and everyone. My first question, I want Steve allow me to give my 4 minutes. When I ask question, don't meet and go to the next one. That's my request.
Okay, you have it.
Yeah, the first one is, please answer fast. There are 59 school districts which are open in person teaching. What type of HIVAC systems they are using? 14 days have passed, and what type of air conditioning or whatever air cleaning systems they are using? Can Dr. Alvich or admin, anyone can answer, please, with respect to?
I don't know what other districts are doing.
Yeah, a question to our president, and he can direct. Yeah.
I think we may have to have Mr. Tague. I don't know if we have all that information.
Yeah, I don't know if we would have, we don't have information on what other school districts are doing. I can only give you the information on what Monroe is doing.
Yeah, thank you. We'll talk in, we'll find out. Want to use the best, reasonably priced system, best system for our children protection. Next, my comment to the entire BOE and the district administration. When we set up a goals in corporations, it was not within 1 hour. With a budget of $135 million, you cannot set up a goal for district and the BOE within 1 hour. And we public has to have input of what we all decide so we can digest it and we will be productive. So my request is to reconsider this, discuss the proposal. I don't know whether Dr. Alvich, I'm not commenting. I like Dr. Alvich, what you're doing is good. I'm not commenting. Whatever goals you have set, at least the BOE members have time to digest it and give a comments. And then, whatever you all want to have a separate meeting discussing the goals is fine. But in a public forum, this is absolutely wrong with $135 million budget. Goals are discussed in 1 hour. And where is the performance? After all, is a performance of the students. The goals have to be set up with the performance of the students. That is the education. And that has to be done properly. And I'll tell you one thing, remote learning, when the COVID is over, we have to go back to in-person. Think of the psychology of the students staying at
Let me just say something about the strategic plan. I think that's what you were talking about. We only have about a minute left, and we have to move on. That's something that's it's been ongoing. And I think you were participating in that, Prakash. And we build on that, and the public will be included in that. And Dr. Alvik, if I'm saying something wrong, please correct me. It's an ongoing process. The board is involved in that. It will be continued. It will include
I
the
want to
public as well.
look at is children are going back. Children has to
Okay, I guess we're ready for the next person.
Yeah.
He's still talking.
That is not good.
I'm sorry.
Stopping us to speak.
What?
Prakash, please continue. You have 30
I'm sorry. We have 27 seconds.
Remote learning, I think the
Prakash?
psychology of the student is very important. When the things go back to normal.
Is he still there, Mr. Gross?
Yes.
I don't hear him. Prakash, did we answer everything?
No, I want to give me a president 1 minute. I will finish it within 30 seconds. My president, my request to you.
Is he muted?
Please.
I don't hear him.
Prakash, please forgive us. We're having technical problems. A board president can't hear you. We will extend 1 more minute of time if the board wishes to allow you to finish your comments.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank Pete.
Can you
go ahead?
Thank you, Michael.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you. Remote learning, I request the board to consider the psychology of the students. Can you hear, President, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Please continue.
Yeah, remote learning, for time giving is okay, but psychology of the students have to be considered. We request that when things go normal, in-person teaching is very important. And whatever time the schools are closed, please plan to make sure that what should be the next referendum. This is the time to invest in capital, improving our current buildings and all that. So please do that. And October 6th meeting with our legislatures, let them think of impact fees and bring more money to our township rather than talking what we are doing in pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you, Prakash. I apologize. I was
You're
not
muted.
able to hear.
Thank you, Prakash. Sorry for the interruption.
Mr. Board President, we have Ram Raghunath. Please state your name and your address, please.
Yeah, hi, this is Ram Raghunath, 6 Owens Drive. Good evening, everyone. I
Good
just
evening.
wanted to add.
Good evening, Ram.
Good evening. I wanted to just add on to what Prakash was saying, his last point, and maybe the board president will have an opportunity to kind of answer as well. Again, like when please correct me if I'm wrong, at least the public and myself, we have the impression, right, at this point, the situation that we know our kids are going to get back to school sooner or later, hopefully it's sooner. It seems like any of our constructions, capital improvement projects are pretty much all on hold, right? But when I drive through West Windsor, Plainsboro, there's South High School, a lot of construction happening. Princeton Junction has finished their elementary, Maurice Hawk, all done, looking very shiny, right? So I'm concerned, like, are we really moving forward with that scenario that 6 months or sooner, kids will be back in school? How are we addressing all the issues that we had? They're not going to disappear. Maybe if I could ask the board president to share his thoughts, whether am I misunderstanding, misreading the situation, or maybe behind the scenes, things are really happening to take us forward.
Should I answer that now, or did you want to continue?
No, I'll hold
okay.
on.
Well,
save the time.
Thank you, Ram. As you heard before, certainly one of our board goals is consideration for the referendum or what we're going to be doing. We got to see how things are looking. First, we have to get through this pandemic. I don't know what the financial situation is in Plainsboro or any other district. I know ours is not the greatest. As Mr. Gorski went, if you listen to him before, you could see it's not the rosiest of pictures financially for us. These are the things that we have to look at and see what we can afford to do. And we will be looking at that. We're not forgetting about that.
Mr. Ryback?
Yes.
If I may add to that, we're certainly still continuing some capital projects as directed by the board. As Mr. Tefano mentioned during the BGT committee report, we just replaced an underground storage tank at the bus depot that was in need of replacement. That is on the last step of completion. At Oak Tree School, we are converting the media center to additional classrooms. That is near completion. And we are making some HVAC upgrades throughout the district to better comply with COVID. As Dr. Alvik stated, we're waiting for some important filters to arrive in October. So we're working within our means to address what we can.
Is any other question?
I'm good. I think I'm muted here.
Mr. Gross, we have the next person, please.
Yes, we have Deborah Palella. Please state your name and address for the board.
Hi, Deborah Palella, 15
Welcome.
Lane.
Welcome.
Hi, everybody. I'm glad to see you guys some of you are in a place together. It makes some of us on this side quite happy. I'd like to start off by saying how much I appreciate how hard my children's teachers are working. They're really putting in, I know, hours beyond even normal to make this try to go as smoothly as possible. I would like to have a few comments and some questions. The first is I'd like you all to know that I feel extremely strongly that my kids do need to get back into school. The technical issues and crying that has happened over the last 9 days, the isolation in their rooms is also a concern of ours. We're not the type of family where usually our children go up into their rooms, shut their doors every day, do schoolwork, and not see them for hours. So this is our new normal, which is obviously not what I guess ideally what we had hoped for. We buy desks for our children's room and they're behind their closed doors 8 to 12 every day, and then again for hours to do their homework. I know this is how it is now, and this is just one of the reasons why I feel it's so important to get them to the school. In addition, we received a letter from the middle school this week. I'm not sure if you're all aware about trying to increase our children's reading stamina and recommended that they read an hour each day. This will not happen in our home. by adding another hour of reading in addition to the 6 to 8 hours that they already are behind closed doors. So whatever the minimum is they need to do for ELA, I'm accepting that at this time because I need them to get out of the house and breathe some fresh air. So that is just a general information. I want to make sure that you're aware that that hour was recommended. Additionally, I want to make sure that you guys knew that when the high school students are taking tests, I want to know if you were aware that besides the iPad they were given, they need to have another sort of device where the teacher can make sure they're not cheating. And I just wanted to make sure that you knew sometimes it's quite difficult for lots of families here, grabbing laptops and running around the house to make sure that a student has it for a test, and then it goes to another kid for other work they need to do. I also want to agree with Mr. Polari about the printer issues. Certainly I'd stress during our day of needing things to get printed, but we do what we can. Another thing I did also want to say is that if there's an issue with wipes that I thought I heard, I'm just curious if that's because we're ordering from certain vendors or if it could just be ordered from anywhere, because in my recent reading and purchasing, been able to buy plenty, and I'm just curious how there's a way that maybe the public could help with that for school, if that's going to impede anyone getting back to school. And finally, regarding what Mr. Arminio was stating about the legislators when Mr. Ryback had stopped the conversation, I just wanted to say that on this end, a lot of parents here have been dealing with this for over 2 years, writing letters and going to Trenton. And as I've stated before, Senator Greenstein has certainly tried to help us as best she can, but I was there when she asked Senator Ruiz to help her and to vote for the increase in funding. And Senator Ruiz's exact words were, "Why would I increase money in your district? Maybe my district needs the money." And it was an obvious play here that it was if you scratch my back, maybe I scratch yours. It's just concerning as a parent because it's not just about us needing the money. It's about what all these other senators need to get for themselves. So even though we can try our hardest, and God, I wish we could all the money we can, it's just not as face value in all the ways.
I'm sorry, we're out of time on that. Let me just say real fast that all of us want to get the kids back to school as soon as possible. Nobody here wants to do virtual or hybrid. We want them all back, and we're doing what we can. But the safety and welfare of the students and staff is really paramount. Because we're out of time, I'm going to ask Mr. Gross for us to move on.
Yes, Mr. Board President, we have Charles DePiero. Please state your name and address for the board.
My name is Charles DePiero, 404 Spotsville Gravel Hill.
Councilman.
All right, thank you. First, I want to say, as Steve just said, I just want to piggyback on that. Even as a resident and a councilman, we're trying to do the same thing. And I just want to thank this board and the administration and all our teachers and our parents that are trying to get through this time that no one could predict. I just had a couple of questions about the $5,100,000. Mr. Gorski said that there's going to be an anticipated surplus. With that being said, he also said it's going to be a 2.1 million shortfall going into next year. That's what I believe I heard. So what would be the intention of this board or the administration with that surplus? If there is a surplus, that it's going to be 5.1, because we do have a lot of open issues this year moving forward. So can I get a breakdown of that 5.1? How did it accumulate to that number? Can you give us a breakdown?
Yeah, I'm going to ask Mr. Gorski to respond.
Evening, Mr. DePiero.
Good evening.
The surplus figure that I mentioned before is a little bit hard to understand because it's not only like a revenue source of savings that is generated throughout the district in the year ended June 30, 2020, but by statute, that savings or surplus has to carry over as a revenue source to 2 years later in the budget, which would be for the budget year 21-22 that we're working on next. Now, it's important to understand how this works. That does not mean you have $5.1 million of extra money to spend in the 21-22 budget. It's the difference between the $5.1 million that we generated in surplus in the year ended June 30, 20, and the amount of surplus from the preceding year, which is $3.4 million. So if you take the difference between 3.4 minus 5.1, you get 3.4 minus 5.1, $1.7 million of additional money that's flowing over to next year's budget. But that is offset by some losses here. For example, we no longer have any bank cap of $1.5 million. So now we're only $200,000 to the good. And when you remove the $600,000 of unrestricted income that we were traditionally transferring from Falcon Care, but because of its closure is no longer available, you're now about $400,000 less than we were at the start of last year. Now that is exclusive of state aid and also the tax levy cap calculation. These are just the external factors of surplus, banked cap, and monies from Falcon Care ECE that we have available at this time.
My last question was on the capital improvements with HVAC. Are we trying to get any grants?
Yes.
HVAC? I know you've done that in the past.
Yes, sir. As we personally talked about, the district applied for a CARES grant where we got $112,000, the maximum we could get from the state. And we did duct cleaning, DUCT, at the middle school to remove hazards and contagions from the duct work. And we also procured services from our environmentalist, Dr. Lynch, who talked to us about cleaning not only the buses, but the classrooms and how to protect ourselves and what chemicals we may or may not use in order to do that. So yes, we are applying for grants. We also did the Digital Divide grant that helped instructionally, but from a facility standpoint, the CARES grant was helpful.
Mr. Gorski, thank you, Councilman. Mr. Gross, how many residents do we have waiting?
We have one left, and can I remind all people who spoke to lower their hand when they're done?
For this one, we're going to move on the agenda. Thank you.
We have Mr. Zach Maralda. Please state your name and address. As he's not there, we'll move on.
That's it. All right, we can move on now. We have our Assistant Superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just first wanted to thank everyone involved in opening the district this year. It was certainly a non-traditional opening, something we've never done. Our teachers have started this year strong, and they're doing an outstanding job. They're using every resource they can to basically tread water, and I think they're, like I said, doing an outstanding job. The administrative team, the PD development team, the building staff, all of our support staff, everyone's had a different role this summer in opening this school. And we're just extremely thankful for all the work they put in, all the thoughtful feedback, and we're excited. We can't wait to get everybody back in the building. But getting us up and rolling in this virtual environment was a tremendous task. And we also definitely want to thank the parents and guardians, your support that you give your children, the support you give your teachers, the collaboration with the school district, the collaboration with the building administrations and the teachers. It's tremendously appreciated. Can't thank you enough. Again, you guys are in a position that we never would have expected ourselves to be in, and I truly appreciate everything you do to support your children and the feedback you give us, the feedback you give the teachers and the principals. We take everything into consideration, and this is a work in progress. We're fine-tuning everything as we go along, as well as planning for getting back in person. So thank you very much to everyone involved in the community and getting us up and running this year.
Dr. Lehman, any board member have a question for Dr. Lehman?
I have a little bit more, Mr. President.
Sorry, go ahead.
That's good. Over the course of the first 4 days of school, I just wanted to highlight our professional development. And even before those first 4 days, we started with a virtual New Teachers Academy. We typically run an NTO, new teacher orientation, and this year, knowing what we had in front of us, we planned to do it all virtually. And our PD team, our administrative team, many teachers were involved in kind of getting everybody oriented to their new role, and we were very excited to welcome our new staff. And then we phased right into the first 4 days of school. We offered nearly 50 professional development opportunities for our staff. 36 of those were some unique opportunities. We created a remote instructional catalog. It's something that our team has been very interested in doing the past few years. And obviously, one of the positives that comes out of this is we're leveraged to do things that we typically don't have the opportunity to get engaged in. And one of those things was a remote instructional catalog. So what's interesting and what is excellent about that is with our remote professional development, it provides a tremendous amount of flexibility for the staff. They can engage in this professional development when it's convenient for them. Oftentimes when we run PD, we have conflicting schedules. We have to plan and organize substitutes and things. And specifically on those Thursday and Friday afternoons of that first week of school when we had half days, you know, if there was a department meeting or there was some sort of grade level meeting and the teachers would normally not be able to engage in PD that was scheduled during that time. Having these remote opportunities was something that, you know, as soon as their department meeting was done, they could hop on and do training in whether it's Flipgrid or building resilience or boom cards or anything that you can imagine. You know, we provided them the opportunity to be able to do that. So it's something we're excited about. Some other things we have in front of us. We have 2 full day professional development days between now and our planned reopening for in-person learning, which is in November. So if we need to, you know, we have them currently scheduled for social emotional learning. They're pre-planned, they're organized, but we can call an audible. And if plans change and we need to support the staff in the transition to in-person learning, we can adjust those days on the fly and we can make them very relevant and you know, address the teachers' needs. So we're excited about the professional development the staff's engaged in. We're very thankful for everyone involved in that process as well. You know, we leveraged our teaching staff and all their expertise, the supervisors, the building PD teams, everyone was involved. So thank you very much. And we're excited to get the year going, but we're even more excited to plan and get the students back here in person.
Thank you. And I apologize for cutting you off on that, Dr. Lehman. I just like to say it's wonderful to hear that we seem to be ahead of the curve on professional development once again, and especially coming up with new instructional strategies and working with our staff who's been doing a fabulous job so that our kids are getting the best possible education on the very extremely hard situation. Any question for Dr. Lehman from the board? Now we can move on to our superintendent's report. Dr. Albeck.
Okay, so I would like to echo all of Dr. Lehman's sentiments. Huge thank you for the first 9 days of school. Today was the 9th day of remote learning, and just a huge thank you to the staff and the administration, the students, the parents, for your flexibility and all of your work on remote learning. We've had many parents reach out to say that instruction is effective and that staff are making connections with students. And we also have parents that reach out to us with feedback on how it's going. And as Dr. Lehman mentioned, we are listening to all of that and continuing to look at our plan and revise as we go. So, you know, if you have questions or if you have concerns or if you have praise, we're happy to hear from you, whether you email your teacher, your building administrator, or any of the central office administration. We promise to respond and get back to you in a timely fashion, but we think it's very important because we do want to continue to hear that so that we continue to make adjustments. Again, this is new for all of us, so we're continuing to learn as we go, but we want to provide the best that we can for our students in this situation that is definitely not ideal. As I mentioned earlier, we are working on our HVAC systems, updating them with the upgraded filters, and we're working through our staffing requests. So our plan is to return to the hybrid model on November 16th. So we are continuing moving forward with that plan. Obviously, anything can happen between now and then, but that is the plan, and we're moving forward. I understand that there is the frustration that's coming from some parents about getting students back in school as soon as we can, and please know that that's our priority. but our first priority is making sure that our students are safe and our staff is safe. So more information will continue to be shared with families, everything that we have presented previously and about the reopening plan is on our district website. So again, feel free to reach out to us. I would like to recognize 2 retirements on our agenda this evening. Mrs. Debbie Conklin, she's a social worker in our district for 17.5 years, and Mrs. Alice Hanson, secretary for 13 years. I want to thank them for their service and wish them long and healthy retirements. Also, just a reminder for everyone that Friday, all schools are recognizing Rosh Hashanah. We will have a 4-hour session for our students and staff. There will be no afternoon sessions on Friday. And Shana Tova to all who are celebrating the new year. So with that, it's recommended that the board approve the attached personnel items A through AX by roll call.
So moved.
Second, Mrs. Kalapanowicz, second.
Any questions?
Any questions or concerns? I keep forgetting to hit this button. Okay, we can move on, Mr. Gorski.
Personnel items A through AX moved. Pelori, seconded. Mrs. Kolopanowicz. Mr. Pelori.
Yes.
Mrs. Kolopanowicz.
Yes.
Mrs. Arminio.
Yes.
Mr. Chiarella.
Yes.
Ms. Siegel.
Yes.
Ms. DeMeo.
Yes.
Mr. Nicotinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Tofano.
Yes.
Mr. Ryback.
Yes.
Mr. Board President, personnel items A through AX is passed.
Thank you.
Okay, so I just want to thank and congratulate Mrs. Maggie Fedora. She will be acting principal at Mill Lake School. For the dates, I don't have the dates in front of me. I think they're October 5th through November 16th. So we're looking forward to having Maggie work as the acting principal at Mill Lake School during that short time. And it's recommended that the board approve attached items, board action items A through I by roll call.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Tufano, second. Okay, any questions? Mr. Gorski, we can have roll call.
Mr. Chiarella.
Yes.
Ms. Siegel.
Yes.
Mr. Pelori.
Yes.
Mr. Tofano.
Yes.
Mr. Nicotinsky.
Yes.
Ms. DeMeo.
Yes.
Mr. Arminio.
I didn't hear you.
How do you vote on board action item I?
Did you say my name?
Yes, ma'am. How do you vote on board action items A through I?
Yes.
Thank you. Mrs. Kolopanowicz
Yes.
and Mr. Ryback.
Yes.
Mr. Board President, board action items A through I passed unanimously.
Okay, and that concludes my report.
Thank you. And we can move on now to the board president's report. As Mr. Tufano mentioned earlier, I was asked.
Board Administrator Post.
Thank you, Mr. Ryback. Mr. Board President and members of the Monroe Township Board of Education, it is recommended that board action items A through G be approved by consent roll call.
So moved.
And I have a second.
Second.
Ms. Arminio, seconds. Any question?
Yes. I have a question on, where is it? On the Cambridge Corporation. I think that is,
Yes, that's my report.
yes, but I'm just looking for it on the page. Anyway, it's a 3-year contract, but on the contract, it says that the quoted prices are only good through October 1st, 2020. So how do we know what our prices will be in the next 3 years?
Mr. Ryback?
Absolutely, go ahead.
This is a contract that has to be approved every year. Although it's a pricing commitment for that period of time, the board will see this for adoption every single year. The price that's presented here is $1.48 per employee. And for 1,178 covered employees, that's a variable number. So for approximately a little over $1,700, you have an extremely valuable service here that every staff member has access to speak about problems of all different natures.
Mr. Gorski, I'm not discussing that, and that's not my issue. My issue is that it says as of today, until only October 1st, the price is $1.48, $1.48. So is it going to I mean, it's a 3-year contract, even though we have to do it every year. This number is only good until October 1st. So 2 weeks.
That price will be in effect until June 30, 2021.
Okay, but with all due respect, it does not say that on the contract, sir. It says on page 3 of 6, quoted, it says, note, quoted price is good through October 1st, 2020.
Yes, I'll repeat myself. That's how they quote their pricing for a 3-year odd term like that. But the Board of Education is proving this tonight only for a 1-year period, July 1st, 2020 to June 30, 21, which is standard for this type of contract.
And is it at $1.48 for the entire year?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Mr. Board President, I have. It's more of a clarification than anything else. Cambridge Corporation, I'm going to stay on what Michelle started. I know that a lot of companies are actually providing emotional help also to their employees. So is our staff and teachers getting that through Cambridge, or is it something different? I think you started sort of getting into that, Mr. Gorski. Is this something that's available to any of our teachers to talk about their emotional or any personal related issues?
Yes, thank you for touching upon that again. Forgive me for the wordiness, but this is a critical service that's provided to all staff, teachers, paraprofessionals, librarians, business administrators, whoever the person is that is going through some kind of crisis in their life and needs to reach out to somebody to speak to. They have a number here where they can call and they could be directed. They could be counseled over the call or directed to a professional who can assist them further. It is an important outreach when somebody's at their last rope for any kind of problems, marital problems, COVID problems, children problems, teaching in a digital environment problem, you name it. So it's a great asset to administration also, because we could recommend staff that we identify that may be in need of this service to this.
I must say that I'm extremely proud that you guys are doing that. That's extremely important during the COVID time. And I have seen firsthand some of the impacts, so thank you.
Mr. Ryback, I believe we've been doing this program or a program like it for many years. And again, I certainly approve of the value of it. My concern is we're going to be voting on a contract, and I just wanted to make sure that the numbers were accurate. And I think that's sort of what our position should be. Thank you.
Mr. Ryback, previously we had St. Barnabas, and it was an approximate $30,000 expenditure every year. This was recommended to the board's committee a couple of years ago. It was recommended by the district's health insurance broker, and our participation from staff has dramatically increased the utilization of this under CareBridge as opposed to the very slim utilization previously. So we are pleased with this administratively, and it is a success.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Thank you, Mr. Tufano.
Mr. Gorski, on G, I understand your explanation before and how this was already set up previous, why we can only use Comcast. My question is, are you by law not permitted to reach out to Verizon and ask them about a price that they can give us? Is that something we're not allowed to do?
Mr. Ryback? No, certainly we could. Because of the dollar amounts here, we would have to go through the procurement process of possibly a bid because of the $40,000 annual price, if there's anything making it exceed that, or at least you would have to get a couple quotes and compare vendors against one to the other.
So wouldn't it be beneficial for us? I mean, it doesn't cost anything to do a quote. So wouldn't it be beneficial to us to go through that process and see if we can get them to bid against each other? At home, Comcast and Verizon, they'll kill each other to get your business. So,
yeah, the beauty of a purchasing consortium is that an outside group that we're a member of and we pay dues to has already done that. And they have the bulk purchasing power because they're buying on behalf of all of the school districts in the county or state. So they twist these people further than we would have power to as an individual school district.
Gotcha.
Thank you. Ms. Arminio?
research
So
with.
can you unmute yourself?
Sorry. No, I am unmuted. Can you hear me now? Okay, the Rowan University, are they doing research with their students in Monroe? Is that what this is?
Dr. Alvin?
No, this is an agreement between Rowan University for us to take any interns, such as student teachers or guidance counselor interns, through their program. So it's similar to our student teacher program.
So what's the difference then between our just having student teachers, or just that we have an agreement with them to take? Is there a quota that they're expecting us to take?
No, there isn't. It's really just a matter of what our teachers can. The way that student teachers work is when a college reaches out to us and says, we have 6 student teachers that want to come to your district. We then reach out to our certificated staff and say, is there anyone who's interested in taking a student teacher specific to their certification? So if it's an elementary, middle school with a specific content area, or high school with a content area. If we have teachers that are willing to accept a student teacher, then we place them. If we don't, then we don't. Because we've done this with other colleges in the past.
Yes, I know, but on reading this one, they're actually we're the facility, and we're providing quality experiential training opportunities for the student. Is that taking away from any of our teaching instruction?
No, actually, many of our teachers who take student teachers find that this is beneficial to them because it's an extra set of hands in the classroom.
I have a quick question. I see that you said that there was an extra set of hands. Did these student teachers actually teach the children and participate with them, or are they just sitting there and observing and learning?
No, they're actually required through their student teaching work that they have to work with students under the direction of the classroom teacher.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, Mr. Gorski.
This is board action items A through G. Ms. DeMayo.
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Arminio.
Yes.
Vote.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Siegel.
Yes.
Mr. Chiarella.
Yes.
Mrs. Kolpanowicz.
Yes.
Mr. Tefano.
Yes.
Mr. Nicotinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Ryback.
Yes.
Mr. Board President, board action items A through G has passed. And before I conclude my report, I would just like to also thanks to Alice Hansen. She spent many years in the business office, and we appreciate her very professional services during her term with us. Wish you the best of health and happiness in retirement. And just some final comments, reiterating what Dr. Elvick and Dr. Lehman has said. You know, we're all in battle conditions right now with COVID, and all of our hands are on deck fighting this terrible pandemic together. Certainly from a business administrator perspective, I want to also thank our teachers, our paraprofessionals, especially our technology staff, who is right there with all of those leading the instructional charge. Especially to our special education teachers, whose complexity of their job has been dramatically compounded under COVID, our bus drivers and security staff, and our facility staff who work extremely hard to keep everything clean and sanitary. Thank you to everybody. Please stay inspired. That's all I have to say, Mr. Ryback. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gorski, and I apologize for skipping over your report. It's a little difficult today doing this meeting between the computer and following everything else we got to do. Okay, as I started to say before, Mr. Tufano's BG&T committee asked me to write a letter to the developers in the area, and I'd like to read that letter and hopefully get the board's approval to send that out. I'm writing this letter at the request of our Board of Education. As you might be aware, the monies we get in state aid are inadequate as well as inequitable. While we understand the state has serious fiscal problems, providing a thorough and efficient education, which would be minimal in itself by interpretation, is placing a larger burden on our already overtaxed residents. In the past 7 years, we have registered over 1,000 additional students. Most districts in our state are experiencing a decrease in enrollment, which makes for them flat state aid, which results in an actual increase per pupil. However, Monroe is not so lucky, as our aid per pupil is an inadequate $873. which is what it was 12 years ago. Our facilities are aging, yet the student population is growing. We have put 2 referenda for more space before the voters, both of which were turned down. One of our schools, Applegarth Elementary on Applegarth Road, was built in 1936. It is in need of many expensive repairs, but together it would cost more than building a new school. Our middle school as well needs updating and improving, all expensive. With the cost of COVID, increasing enrollment, and the poor economy with high unemployment, our budget cannot pay for the capital improvements needed. We have, over the years, reached out to our state legislators, Senator Sweeney, Commissioner of Education, and Governor Murphy. Although they have been sympathetic, they have not brought us the needed funds. By now, you are probably and correctly guessing at the reason for this letter. As companies investing capital in Monroe's growth, we are hopeful that you might be willing to donate the resources needed to help our school district meet our needs. We would be more than happy to meet with you or your representatives to go into more detail if you desire. Please do not hesitate to contact me or our superintendent, Dr. Alvick, with any questions. Having read that, I'd like to make the following motion. I make a motion for members of the Board of Education to 1, approve the previously submitted letter requesting developers to donate financial resources to the Monroe Township School District, and 2, direct the board president to transmit the letter to developers who are actively building developments in Monroe. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Tufano, we have a second.
Second.
Mr. Tufano.
I did.
And Mr. Mayo seconded. Do you have any questions or comments, Mr. Pelori?
Yes, Mr. Board President, when we talked about this in BGNT, the intent of the recommendation that I suggested was to ask them for sponsorship, not necessarily donation. I know it's a terminology issue. I think what we're trying to do is have them sponsor a specific project that would have their name or some sort of a plaque on the project, so that they feel that they have invested in the town that they're building. So I think I would like to see. I don't know if you agree or disagree with me, but I think instead of calling it a donation, I think a donation / sponsorship of a specific project of your interest may be amicable.
Well, where I'm not saying you're wrong, but where I disagree is I think we need to sit down with them and show them our needs. And I think I really think that what we need is donations from them to make these corrections or do what's needed. I don't see asking them to put a clock on or put a fence around something is enough. I think we need them to, they're making millions of dollars off of this town, and I think they can afford collectively, and this is something we could say if we meet with them, to put a new roof on, to put a new furnace in, to build an extension, or do whatever's needed. I'd rather save the specifics for a meeting and let them see donation, because whether you say sponsor or donate, it's the same thing. It's a voluntary contribution.
Yeah, I agree with you in terms of keeping it open, but I think I don't know, maybe Pete can recall better than I do. I think we didn't we say that Mr. Gorski is going to come up with a list of top 10 or 15 items of travel?
Yeah, we said Mr. Tague was going to do that, but I wanted to get this letter out.
Oh, you're right.
Now, I think it's important. Timing's important. That list was not ready yet. And to be honest with you, Mr. Pelori, we need to sit down with these developers. If they are interested, they will respond and contact me or Dr. Alvick. And I think that's the time to show them what we need and how much the costs are.
Mr. Ryback?
Sure.
That list that Mr. Pelori referred to was specific for budget priorities, and we were going to discuss that at the budget priority meeting coming up, the board's budget philosophy meeting.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Tufano?
I'm good. Mike said what I was going to say.
Okay. Anyone else? Yeah, Ms. Arminia.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see, it's a very lovely letter and a very soft, ask, but I would like to see a very specific ask. I mean, I think I would like to, and if you're going to say that you want to meet with them and then give them this, if they don't meet with us, I'd like a follow-up within a month or two, like by January 1st. I would love to have some buildable property. We could use some property. We could keep it in our inventory. I would like for them to, put some buildings up for us if we need. I mean, these people are making more than millions. They're making hundreds of millions. And the taxpayers, they're getting the profit and the taxpayers are paying the bill. So this is a lovely letter and it could be a first shot, but I think we have to start getting very serious. And may I finish, please?
Yeah, sure. I thought you were.
No, well, so just recently I attended the planning board meeting where it was already approved. It was over 900 housing units. There was an application to do some waivers and things. It has been approved, but they made it very clear, the applicant, that those 900 units, they plan to have them built within 5 years. And if within those 5 years, and of course the mayor tried to say that it's not going to happen, it's going to take 10 years. They made it very clear more than once that build out is going to be in 5 years. And that's on the corner of Route 33 and Prineville Road. And they're going to stack people up, and they actually call them stackable buildings. So if we don't get some concessions from these builders, we should be ashamed of ourselves, because they're taking the money and running, and we really need to help our students. They're not doing any service, and they talk about the affordable housing. It's all about affordable housing, and we're going to get sued if we don't do it. Well, guess what? They're practically putting the affordable housing units towards the end of the building. I mean, they're putting a lot of the market rate. So 80% is market rate, where they're going to get very high values, and only 20% in each project is going to be the affordable housing. And they do intend to do, in that particular one, build in 5 years. So we hear a lot of rhetoric about, we're going to get sued, or this is going to happen, or that's going to happen. What's really happening is that our taxpayers are overburdened by profit-making organizations. So this is lovely, and I'll vote for it, but we need to be firmer, I think.
Let me just say something. Pete, let me just respond, Michelle. My intent here was to get our foot in the door, so to speak. And I think that where we need to be firm, and I certainly would put a follow-up letter if we get anything, absolutely. And that's what I was thinking. You sort of read my mind on that. But I think at our meeting with them, if we get that, I think that's where we're going to have to put it in black and white and show them our needs and show them what their developments are causing in this school system. I think that has to be done. Mr. Tucci.
I'm sorry. I think what would be also a very good idea is if we copy that letter over to our mayor and the council and had them sign that letter as well as all of us, because I think the builders would take it a little more serious if our township council and mayor name was on the bottom of that as well.
I think the intent of this letter was to come from the board, and I think we should keep it that way. I don't mind CCing the mayor and.
Well, I think as a township, the best interest of the entire township, and I think the mayor and the township council would agree that they have the best interest of the taxpayers in mind, and I think that if I was on the council or I was the mayor, I would definitely want my signature on the bottom of that, trying to help the township as much as possible and the taxpayers and the students here. So I think, maybe we should take a vote if we think that should also be signed by the township council and mayor.
Okay, well, that's fine with me. I would first like to get the letter accepted, and then you could make a motion to do that.
Okay.
All right. Anyone else?
Mr. Ryback?
I don't know. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Chiarella. I'm looking around.
How are you? All right, Steve. I'm gonna support this letter, and I just want to echo some of the things that I've heard here tonight. But we, the taxpayers of Monroe, have been subsidizing developers in this town for many years, and now it's impacting our children, and it's impacting our education, and I think. and I've said this before, but I think the whole affordable housing thing is a scam. You know, the developers come in and say, hey, we're going to build 25% of your affordable housing or your affordable housing obligation. And then they slide in 75% unaffordable. And that's what's going on. And we need for everyone, all of our elected officials to stand up and be counted here, because this is really getting ridiculous. But I am going to support this. We need to help with it. It's exasperating.
Thank you, Ken. Anyone else? Okay. Can we take a roll call?
Approve the letter to developers and direct the superintendent to transfer the letter to all appropriate parties. Motion was moved by Mr. Tufano, seconded by Mr. Mayo. Mr. Tufano.
Yes.
Mr. Mayo.
Yes.
Mr. Nicotinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Pelori.
Yes.
Ms. Armenio.
Yes.
Mrs. Kolpanowicz.
Yes.
Mr. Chiarella.
Yes.
Ms. Siegel.
Yes.
And Mr. Ryback.
Yes.
The board president, motion passes unanimously.
Mr. Tufano?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we request that the mayor and council in town also sign the bottom of that letter.
I'll second it.
Second. Okay. Any discussion, comments?
Yes, Mr. President, if I may.
Sure.
Being a member of the planning board and the implications of having township officials, I mean, it's none of my business at the end of the day. I think if they want to sign it, I would love to see that the elected officials from the town also throw their weight behind this letter. But I would suggest that we talk to the attorneys, either the board attorney or somebody, before we ask them. And the reason I say that is sometimes the planning board is put in a situation where we can't even say no to some of these things because they go back to the court and they get their say and that it gets approved. So if the township mayor and the council decides to sign the letter, it could be viewed as illegal or something to that effect. That's my guess, but I think it's something that we should explore before we ask them to do that. But if they can sign it, I think that I completely agree with Mr. Tufano that it carries a lot more weight.
Anyone else? Mr. Mayo? Could you unmute yourself? I think.
I'm just responding to Andy's. I think it's up to the town council and the mayor to review this with their attorneys, not us to review it for them. So I think we can't hurt just to ask them.
I agreed.
I mean, we want to show a united front.
I have an idea I'd like to propose. I think that we should send this letter out on our own. And I think that what we can do is send a copy of this letter to the mayor and the council, asking them to support it. And if they want to, fine. Because if we're asking them to sign it and they won't or they can't for some reason, that's just going to delay it. I want to get this letter out to them. So I think, Mr. Tufano, if that's okay with you, I think it'll serve the same purpose. We mail the letter out, we send a copy to the mayor and council, asking them to support it. And then if they do, send that show of support to the.
Well, I mean, we've been waiting years for this. I mean, a few, maybe 2 more weeks, 3 more weeks, it's not going to make a difference. I think we should just ask them to sign it. If they don't want to sign it, then we send it out without their signature. It's not going to. We can send it out with our signatures and then have them sign and send it to them again.
That would work. Yeah.
Mr. Ryback, there's a motion on the table. It was first and seconded, so we have to vote on it. And Mr.
No, I
Tufano
realize that, but we're having discussion now, so that's what we're doing. Okay, so Mr. Tufano, would you amend your motion so that we could send this out and then send a copy to the mayor and council asking them to sign it? Wait, it can go out.
I honestly don't agree with that. I think what we really should do is vote on this, ask them to sign it. If they won't sign it, then I mean, we'll have a decision from them within a few days, I'm sure. They're either going to say yes or no. And in a few days, it's not going to make a difference.
Okay, let's take a vote on this.
Okay. Mr. Peluri?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Mayo?
Yes.
Mr. Nicotinsky?
Yes.
Mr. Chiarella?
Yes.
Mrs. Koloponowicz?
Yes.
Ms. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Tefano?
Yes.
Mr. Ryback?
Yes.
Board President, Mr. Tefano's motion passes.
Okay, thank you. I do have some, I'm sorry, I do have some other updates I'd like to read to you. This past Saturday, we had a New Jersey School Board Legislative Committee meeting, and I just want to give you some updates that might be valuable. The NJSBA Legislative Committee met on Saturday the 12th. The big topic was healthcare. Chapter 78 relief was signed into law. It's PL 2020 C44. It provides for mandatory enrollment into NJEHP, New Jersey Employee Health Protection, for all new hires after July 1st, 2020. These employees cannot change plans until 2028, and there's a 7-year lock, which means that there will be no change in benefits through 12/31/27. Single participants would pay approximately 1.7% of their salary, and for families, it would be approximately 7.2%. There will be a Garden State health plan available July 1st, 21. That would be the same as the NJHEP, but only good for New Jersey providers, so it would be less expensive. Employee premium sharing is 1/2 that of NJEHP. Secretary DeVos has lost her legal battle to distribute funds other than Title I to private schools. The State Board of Education decided that climate change would be integrated throughout the curriculums. And I think we're doing this already. Lead testing regulations were updated so that testing is done every 2 years instead of 6. And I also would like to thank our entire staff, teachers, bus drivers, custodians, parents, everybody, custodian workers, cafeteria workers, for the fantastic job they're all doing, our school administrators and our central administration as well, in working on this pandemic and doing the best they can for our kids. Thank you. Now we can move to other Board of Education business. Anyone? Mr. Peluri?
Thank you, Mr. President. One question I have is that how come Ken Chiarella, who's sitting in his living room wearing a mask, and Peter Tufano and Audi, who are in here not wearing a mask? I'm only kidding. Why are you wearing a mask, Ken?
I'm doing it in solidarity with our students and teachers.
Thank you. Let me just start off by saying I know everybody said and thanked the staff for the wonderful job they're doing. I can speak on behalf of the community who contacted me and shared their thoughts. They felt that between March and Steve, if you don't mind putting your mic on mute. Thank you. Between March instruction and what's going on right now is like day and night. They're extremely impressed with the way things are going. And I still think that it's a good idea for us to have some sort of a community meeting. I agree with Adi that it should not be restricted to one community, probably for whoever is interested to come in and listen to it. So that's number one. Second thing is, in terms of the goals that we talked about, I agree with one of the residents who suggested that we cannot make a decision in 1 hour. I think those goals were set up in 2019 and 2020. And the 2020-2021 year is completely different than what we experienced from the pandemic and the way we're conducting the instruction. So transferring the same exact goals to this year, I don't feel that that's the right thing to do. And I think we need to make sure that we're adding a second layer of goals and objectives to it. So one of the questions that was asked is that what's the point in having the elected legislators come in and talk to us? And what is termed as success? what I term as success is the opportunity for our taxpayers to ask the questions they want to ask. I hear from the community a lot that they send a question to the senator or to the assemblyman, and sometimes they get answers, sometimes they don't. So I consider it a success if we can provide that platform to our taxpayers. With that said, one thing that I do want to share is today I actually signed, I was sworn in for the Middlesex County Community College. From what I understand, that there's not much of a representation on the trustee board at the county college from the southern part of the state, especially in Monroe, South Brunswick, Old Bridge area. And I'm certainly looking forward to not only working with the board and the administration, but also from the teachers and parents to see how we can better bring together our school district with the county college. One thing that I learned during the orientation is that some of the high school kids start taking the community college credits and they can finish their college in 2 years. If I would have known that earlier on, I would have maybe pushed my kids to do that. And for those of you who may be interested, please reach out, share your thoughts, share your ideas. I'll be more than happy to represent the interest of Monroe. Thank you very much.
Congratulations again, Andy. They're lucky to have you, so are we. Okay, any other member of the board? Not seeing anyone, we could move on to the public forum. You are not limited here to the agenda. You could speak on any topic, but you do have 4 minutes to speak. I ask you to state your name and address.
Mr. Board President, we have Chrissy Skirby. Please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, hi, Chrissy Skirby, 21 Preakness Drive. Just to let you know, I did have my hand up for the last public forum and I was not recognized. I wanted to, a couple of questions that I have. One, I just want to bring up what Mrs. Palella had brought up earlier. Honestly, I think the way she was treated was very disrespectful. If members of the public call up and offer help or you know, ways that they could possibly be of assistance to the district, I think that should be answered whether the 4 minutes runs out or not. Mrs. Palella said that she thinks that she may be able to, or maybe community members may be able to help the district order and get wipes. Maybe that's something that we want to look into, because I know there's a lot of school districts, and here in Monroe, a lot of, I know a daycare center that's open and running, and they're not having any problem getting any disinfecting wipes. So maybe there is a way that you can reach out to the community and see about getting those. Another thing, with the remote learning, we were told as parents that we would be able to decide after the first marking period if we wanted to stay remote or if we wanted to change, for those parents who had selected all remote, if we wanted, we could change our mind to have our children come back into school at that point. I wanted to know, when will the district be reaching back out and asking parents if they want to remain remote or if they would like to come back in? And if the number increases significantly of the parents that want to now send their children back to the building, will we be able to handle that? Another question that I had regarding something Mr. Gorski said, that we pay dues to be part of the consortium to save money. We're paying dues to a service that helps us save money. How much are those dues that we are paying? And then just something else that Dr. Alvick had said. We had been told, I know in meetings, that you're meeting with other districts, yet tonight you said you have no idea what other districts are doing. So, I mean, if you're meeting with the other districts, you should have an idea of what other districts surrounding us are doing and be able to give that kind of input back to the public when asked. And then just another thing that wasn't mentioned, at the BG&T committee, the committee decided after having 2 vendors make presentations to not add air systems to classrooms that kill viruses. That is something that a lot of districts are doing, and Monroe has decided not to do that, which I think is unfortunate. So if you could answer those questions, the wipes, how much we pay the consortium to dues, and about the remote learning if parents want to decide now to send their kids back that originally said they didn't.
Thank you, Ms. Kirby. I just want to address one thing. I think the district that was mentioned was Plainsboro, and we've been communicating with districts in Middlesex County. And then, the other thing I want to say, as far as Mrs. The resident that we couldn't answer, the time would run out on her. We need to keep this moving. I did say last month that if somebody has multiple questions, because we only had 4 minutes, that it may be better to write those questions to the district so that they can get a full answer, or call the superintendent. It's fine to come up to the microphone, but if you're coming up to the microphone, you got to realize you have 4 minutes, and people are waiting. Dr. Albert, did you want to address some of this, and maybe you can answer some of those questions?
Well, I did. I did take note of what Ms. Palella replied about a couple things. So I know that Dr. Higgins will definitely be reaching out to her about the question she had about testing at the high school. I thought she said lighting, not wipes. So I'm not sure. I'll have to double check on that one. A question about remote learning. Yes, we will be reaching out to parents in October about what their preference is for when we do open in November, because we understand that that may have changed. Yes, I am meeting with other districts, but I don't know what their HVAC systems are, which was what the question was. And it was also about the referendums, I think, the referenda projects at West Windsor Plainsboro, which I'm not familiar with, except that it was passed before the COVID pandemic hit.
Mr. Gorski.
I want to echo what Dr. Alvik said. The previous speaker mentioned lights, and the issue was referring to an oak tree project presented with the BGT report, where the vendor who's doing the construction, making additional classroom, is back ordered on lighting, and that we're waiting for the lights in order to complete the project. It had nothing to do with wipes. And certainly when we're speaking about consortiums, the district has saved multiple millions of dollars by participating in bulk pricing advantages through consortiums. But as you can imagine, there are administrative costs and fees with running these consortiums, whether it be through the county office or privately. And each one of the consortiums that we participate in has the fees delineated in the resolutions, which are approved in the minutes. I don't know which specific consortium you're referring to. If it's the ACES grant consortium, you could search through the minutes for the ACES resolution, and you could find the backup for that and find out the specific fees associated with it. But we certainly saved several $1 million by joining these consortiums, and they are a required shared service that's also listed on our budget pages on our website.
Mr. Gorski. Mr. Gross, how many more residents do we have?
We still have 7 more residents with their hands raised.
Okay, let's have the next one.
Okay, Mr. Board President, we have Betty Sabb. Please state your name and address for the record.
Betty, I can't hear you.
I guess she's not there. Let's move on. Mr. Board President, I have Renee Kokoska. Please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, Renee Kokoska, 231 Mounts Mills Road.
You're welcome.
Clarification on something Mrs. Siegel said about the opium antidote. Maybe I wasn't hearing. I was already disconnected from the meeting, so maybe it was a bad connection. But she mentioned grades K through 12, and then I heard train to administer. So I'm a little concerned about that. I'm not exactly sure what was said or what K through 12 meant. Again, I had a bad connection. Also, my hand was also raised during the last public forum and not recognized. And I have a suggestion, perhaps. Since we all want to get back to, getting back to school, being in person, maybe we should start training the kids now, maybe a little bit of time during remote learning to put their masks on now so they can get used to their full day at school to wear a mask. Because I know my kid will wear his mask in the store and he takes it off as soon as we leave the store. So maybe we can start training them to keep their masks on a little longer. And sorry, one other thing. Mr. Pelori, you got to move the microphone away from your mouth because I have to turn my volume down every time you talk. It's extremely loud. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Alvik, I think you wanted to answer some of that.
Yeah, I can answer that. So the opioid antidote policy, which is what Mrs. Siegel was referring to, we made it K to 12 because there are adults in the building, whether it be visitors, whether it be staff, hopefully not staff, but whether it be visitors or someone in the area. So that's why the policy is K to 12 and not just high school. The people who will be trained are, we'll start with our school nurses, but we will be working with our district physician to identify who will be trained to administer the opioid antidote. It's really just that we're required to have this available. Hopefully we won't have to use it, but that's why it's a K to 12. So it's in all buildings and all offices in our district. Thank you for the suggestion about students training with their masks. That's definitely something that we tried to send out over the summer to staff. But you know, a reminder is always good to have parents to kind of try out different masks for children because I know even for myself, I've tried different masks to see which one works best for me. So I think it's important to do that for students and make sure that they fit well. So yes, having them practice now, I think is definitely a good point. So I will take that into consideration. So thank you.
Thank you. Next resident, please, Mr. Gross.
Mr. Board President, we have Pradeep Malam. Please state your name and address for the record.
Hi guys, can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Pradeep, 4 Jet Place. So one comment is like, I sent an email requesting you to not to mute me until the 4-minute timer is up. But in the previous public forum, you muted me and you didn't give me a choice to ask a follow-up questions. So following up on the previous...
Well, let me say, I apologize to you for that, but I answered you today, which I know you must have got my email.
Yeah, but it's not in the action. The email doesn't make any purpose unless you implement it during the minutes during the my 4-minute time.
All the time.
Let's move on to the follow-up question. So I know the ASS, you guys are like getting the internet through ASS, and even Verizon is a provider. My question specifically is why you don't evaluate even Verizon as a competitor? Because Verizon, in my street, there are 40 houses. When the Verizon comes in, all 40 out of 38 houses are moved to Verizon because of their connectivity, no issues and everything. So that's again my question, why you guys are not planning, because we have bad experience with the Comcast. Our district IT infrastructure is compromised twice.
Is that that's everything, Pradeep? You ready for a response?
Yes.
Gorski, do you want to take that?
Sure. Verizon does not participate in a purchasing consortium. It was Comcast. The district could go out to bid or quote for these services, but it is, in my opinion, unlikely that we're going to even come close to the prices that are procured from the consortium that buys in such bulk that they get very advantageous prices. Plus, there are costs associated with putting together specifications for these services and going through the public procurement process that is avoided when you go through with the consortium. I'm not aware of any instance where we could have gone privately and beat the prices through these consortiums.
Now that consortium, I just read about the consortium. The consortium, Verizon is also participating in the consortium in Middlesex County.
I'd have to research what the gentleman's talking about, but this is the recommendation that came from our technology department. And as a matter of fact, I do recall that years ago with Mr. Washington at the director of IT, we did have Verizon, and we were very happy to make the change to Comcast because we had problems as a school district with what we had with Verizon. I don't remember the specifics of it, but you can't really compare your experience as a homeowner to that of a school district with 8 schools and some in remote locations. It's a little different.
Okay, I agree with you. Home and business are different, but there are two false statements. One is Verizon is not participating. Second one, you are not talking about the compromisation of school district infrastructure, and kids' retails have been compromised, or email server has compromised twice with the Comcast. You are not acknowledging that fact.
Mr. Ryback, this is going beyond my expertise. I asked Mr. Malam to follow up with our technology director so that he could satisfy his concern there.
Okay. Pradeep, is that okay with you?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I think we can move on. I feel not finished. All right, we can move on, Mr. Gross.
Mr. Board President, we have Brian Fabiano. Please state your name and address for the record.
Can't hear him.
Doesn't appear to be there right now. We will move on. Mr. Board President, I have Prakash Parab. Please state your name and address for the record.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Prakash, we hear you.
Yeah, Doctor. Yeah, thank you, President, and everyone. Dr. Alvich and the teachers and administration and the staff, thank you very much for your good job. What I hear is, in these challenging times, we cannot be perfect, but you all are doing the best. Thank you very much. And student safety and staff safety and community safety is the first priority. We are not going to have vaccine up to December or January, and we don't have treatment. As you said, children are still wearing masks. What type of mask is a challenge? And I think we have to control the spread of this COVID. And that's way it is good for the economy, good for everyone. So I respectfully request BOE and district to look unpolitically at this. Our president doesn't wear mask. That's not a good message. I don't want to be political. I want America to be the best, and we have to move ahead. Okay. With that, every day I publish what governor talks. Yesterday, I couldn't get in on Monday into Facebook personally posting on 8 towns. I did through Micah, and I was happy to see that what I post, there are about 3,900 people read it every day. I only post what I report, what governor says. I don't give my opinion, so I'm thankful. And I request advocacy committee look after our special education, funding for our schools. Builders are taking opportunity and building. Let them contribute to the community. Let our legislature look at that. That's our request. And opioid, antidote. Oh my God, our children on opioid, taking all this smoking, tobacco. We have to educate them what we can do. This is killing our children, killing our society. This is not good. So these are my comments. Thank you, President.
Thank you, Prakash. Someone else?
Yes, Mr. Board President. We have Christine Lester. Please state your name and address for the record.
Christine Lester, 261 Cranberry Half Acre Road. I first want to say that I appreciate all the steps the district is taking to keep our students and staff safe, both right now and preparing everyone to return to school. I would also like to acknowledge that how amazing our teachers have been. Remote learning is not without hiccups, but our teachers are working harder than they ever have, and I can't say enough good things about everything that they're doing. To piggyback one of the earlier callers where we were talking about like the kids practicing mask, I can't help but think how hypocritical it is to have board members giving us committee reports detailing all the steps and precaution that the district is taking to keep our staff safe and to get everyone back in person and to keep them safe when they return. We have 2 members right now of the Board of Ed attending this meeting in the high school library without masks. They are endangering the community, their fellow board members, our IT department that I see walking behind them. They're also putting the community at risk. This same staff that they're coming in contact with interact with all of our students, their families, the teachers, the coaches, and other district employees. Currently, it is mandated that by the state that we wear masks indoors. And I have notices posted on all the schools that no person is admitted to any building or grounds without a mask. And I wonder why it's not being enforced tonight. Even when our children are attending sports practices, they cannot get out of the vehicle unless they have a mask and their temperature checked. So I'm wondering why our Board of Ed, our community members, we're not holding them to the same standard.
I think you raised a good point, and I think that's something that we'll be taking up. But your certainly message has been heard.
Thank you.
Mr. Board President, we have Katie Belko. Please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, this is Katie Belko, 8 Brandon Avenue. Can you hear me okay?
Welcome, Katie.
So I have 3 points I would like to have addressed. A few months back, I had mentioned about showing the attendees of the board meeting on these WebEx meetings. The only attendee that I can see on the list is myself. And if I was in the room with you folks there, socially distanced, I would be able to see all of the other townspeople that are at the meeting. And so I would know that who is actually attending, not just the board people and the ancillary staff that is assisting with these meetings. I think it's very important that we all know who attends our meetings. Secondly, I have a question for, I believe this possibly Dr. Alvich might be able to answer. There's been some questions from the community out on Facebook about the college boards that were scheduled to be in Monroe Township on October 3rd, I believe. Please don't quote me on the date, I don't know. But as of the other day, it was still listed on the college board as a site where this exam was going to be given. And it wasn't until they called the office of the guidance counselor that they discovered that the SATs were not going to be given in Monroe Township. I think it would have been an excellent opportunity to practice our safe social distancing with people in the building and get an opportunity to do that. And I hope that we consider that in the future, because it would have been a very controlled atmosphere and it would have been able to be done with people who are almost adults. So I think that we missed an opportunity there. And then my next question is why are we waiting for October to send out the surveys to the parents about whether or not they want to stay remote or whether they want to have their children back in school? And then my fourth point, I'm sorry, it just came back to me in my head, is we need to do whatever we can to get our special needs children back in the buildings. There are parents that, we have, as a co-leader of CPAG, I get a lot of inquiries, and we have really tried to reach out and help and support the members of the community with special needs parents. And we have not, it's very hard. We are all struggling, and it's very difficult to continue and to be able to function in our homes, and for our children to be able to do the things that they need to do to be successful in their classrooms and in their situations. So I implore the administration to really ramp it up and bring these kids back to school. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Alvin.
It's my understanding that we were never having the SATs in October in Monroe. We don't offer the SATs every time in Monroe Township High School. Every time that College Board runs them, it is a huge process for our staff, specifically Dr. Critelli and our guidance department, to staff and organize any time we have the SATs. So we only do them a couple of times a year. So I hear what you're saying, but it was never an intent to have it in October. So I'm not sure why it was listed wrong on college boards. So because one of the pieces is actually staffing it. And the last couple of times we've actually had college boards and had SATs in our buildings, we've had difficult time staffing the assessment. It's not just for, we have to make sure that we're doing it for general education students, special education students, and making sure that all of those accommodations are made, which could take 2 days for some students. We're waiting till October because we're waiting for those filters to come in to make sure that we're on course for our opening in November. And as I mentioned at the CPAG meeting last week, we are looking to bring, and I mentioned tonight too, we're trying to bring the special needs students back in the building, but we will only do that when we know that it's safe for our students and staff to do that with the updates to our HVAC system and making sure that we have all of the supplies we need and the staffing that we need for our schools.
Dr. Alvin. Gross, anyone else?
Mr. Board President, we still have about 6 in the queue. Next up, I have Sarah Aziz. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, my name is Sarah Aziz, 3 Lancelot Drive. First, I just want to commend the teaching staff on the amazing job they've done improving remote learning in the fall. It's a night and day improvement from what it was last spring. I especially appreciate the efforts they're making in helping the students learn to be more independent. I've noticed this with my 4th grader. I think the first few days he was, constantly coming to me saying I need help, but then gradually he learned to ask his teachers, and now he's doing it more independently. It's getting better every day. I'm still struggling with my special needs 7th grader, and I would also echo the importance of bringing the special needs kids back as soon as possible. I know we're waiting to make the school safe for the staff and students. I remember at the last meeting, Dr. Alvid floated the possibility of having special needs students come in for one-on-one sessions if the parents could transport them. And then I heard a rumor that the bus might transport them. And I don't know, like when the special needs students come back, how do they think that would look like? Would it be one-on-one sessions? Would it be groups that are in the school that are small but socially distanced? I just wanted to follow up on that.
Dr. Alvin.
So we are in the process of looking at that. And again, it's all dependent on whether we have all of the supplies we need for student and staff safety. That's the first priority, and our staffing. Kind of doing it in a phased-in approach. And I mentioned this at CPAG last week also. Starting with the related services, which would be individual students. We've done some assessments, specifically over the summer. Our accelerated math assessments were done in school. Some of our kindergarten type assessments for specific students, and some of our evaluations are going to be done in person. So starting with that, moving to the self-contained classes and identified groups, and then moving to the November opening. Okay.
Thank you. Next person, please, Mr. Gross.
Mr. Board President, I have Ram Raghunath. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. Ram Raghunath, 6 Owens Drive, Monroe. Couple of things. One is I recall, I have still with me this article I read end of July. This is from the Hazlitt School Systems, where I think I saw it where on CNN or somewhere they had interviewed Dr. Scott Ridley, their superintendent of Hazlitt Schools, and I'm sure Dr. Alvik probably knows him well. But it was interesting when I saw that interview as well as the article. It showed how the Hazlitt schools really used all their savings from March through, through August to really fund a lot of things they need to do, both in terms of health measures, safety measures, and other things, so that they can actually offer in-person classes. And in particular, they can address the special needs kids so that they do have in-person, full day, Monday through Friday classes. And they installed plexiglass shields in every single desk with those funds. So I'm just thinking, I know we had a lot of debate on whether we had savings or not in the March through August period, but at least that now the period we are in and looking for at least November, kids not going back. So can we actually target and those first have very clear goals on what savings we can realize, plan for that, and start to take some of the precautionary measures, start to invest in those, right? I'm not saying you're not doing it, but I'm just thinking, is there a way to fast track it, particularly with the special needs children? I think we need to give the parents that option, right, where they can come in back. It should be their decision. It should not be driven by our inability to provide a safe environment. I think there's a lot of static, but let me stop there. I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Thank you. Mr. Corsi, you want to take that? It seemed to be financial.
Yes. Certainly in the excess surplus number, which we presented as $5.1 million for the year ended June 30, 20, there were contributions from being closed in the vicinity of several $100,000. A lot of the other money came from district savings initiatives and things like that. And I would love to have a further conversation with you about how excess surplus carries over as a revenue source, but it's only the difference of the new excess surplus number of 5.1 compared to the previous number that was built into the current budget that is really new revenue. And the other offsets that we have. I'm not sure how Hazlitt or some of these other school districts got funding for some of the larger projects that I'm hearing, but at the Building Grounds Transportation Committee, we looked at some of the HVAC COVID and bacteria elimination systems, two of them as a matter of fact, and one cost proposal was over $1 million to implement one of them at all of our schools. That is not something that's going to come from savings and not have a severe detrimental effect on a future year's budget. So we have participated in grants like CARES and Digital Divide and external grants. We're doing the best we can to scrape up. And Dr. Alvick and I do meet with other superintendents and business administrators at county meetings, and where we brainstorm and share best practices with each other. So if we find a way to finance some of these things, we'll take it back. But I hope that answers your question on those.
Thank you, Mr. Gorski. Mr. Gross, next person, please.
Mr. Board President, we have Deborah Palella. Please state your name and address for the record.
Hello, this is Deborah Palella, 15 Louise Lane. I'm calling to clarify what I had stated earlier since there seemed to be some confusion. I did state that I was referring to Clorox and Lysol wipes. If there's an issue with the school system getting them, I had commented that they are more readily available right now. And I was thinking that we could reach out to the community members as well as local businesses to get them. My husband's company is not having any difficulty getting them. In fact, the teams that my children are on do not seem to be having any difficulty. I don't know if we need hundreds. I don't know if we need thousands, but I could tell you I'm aware of hundreds of orders in the last week by just looking in different places for them. So that was something I wanted to clarify right now. Additionally, earlier, Dr. Alvick, you had mentioned a letter that was written or that had all the information regarding what needed to be done and had to be, sent over to the county superintendent's office, I thought I heard say, what systems needed to be in place and what changes needed to be made for us to move forward to try to get back to school. And if I did hear that correctly, I'm wondering if that is something that is already made public or something that will be made public, just so all of us could see some of the things besides what we hear on the call are being done and addressed for the school to be back in whenever possible. Thank you.
The wipes issue was an issue at the last board meeting. I did talk about a wipes order that was on back order, and that's why it was canceled, because it was such a large order. We are able to get wipes now. It's a huge number of wipes that we're going to need specifically for the middle school and high school. So we also have other things in place, because I don't want to open up and then have to close again because we run out of wipes. So we are ordering them and we are able to get them. So thank you for that. The letter to the county superintendent was the request to go fully virtual. That was actually shared out with parents through an email through the Global Connect system.
Okay.
So if you're on that system to get that was shared out back in, I'm thinking August 24th, but I could be wrong on that. It is also on our district website in the Restart Committee area, so that it has been posted to the website. So yes, it actually has been made public since it was sent to the county superintendent.
Okay, and is it also public knowledge or not? I know we keep talking about the issue with trying to get teachers back in, et cetera. Is there a certain number of teachers that we are in need of right now, that is the number that we're trying to get back in?
No, part of the process is not only that staff are taking, are requesting to take a leave for any reason, whether it be medical or childcare or that type of thing, but it's also meeting with staff to identify any special accommodations or special circumstances we need to do with staff. So no, right now we are staffed. We do have a couple of positions that we're staffing with 17% specifically at the middle and high school, like until we find a replacement. So no, it's just the process that we have to go through when we have a staff member who's requesting, either an accommodation or a leave.
How often are you asking them or surveying them to see who's coming back?
Well, our principals have conversations and meetings with our teachers all the time, but a staff member has the right to do that at any time. To take a leave or ask for an accommodation.
I did not know if there was an official survey going out weekly or monthly to see what the different statuses are. It's just an ongoing conversation.
It's an ongoing conversation, yes.
Okay. All right. So to clarify, if there's assistance needed wipes by the school system, I was recommending to go out to the community and to local businesses because all the businesses I know are not having difficulty getting daycare centers, et cetera. And I wanted just to lay that out there or to reach out for us to assist in that situation.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Ms. Palella. Mr. Gross, how many more residents do we have online?
Mr. Board President, we have 4 residents waiting to speak.
So we'll close it after 4. Let's have the next one.
Okay. Mr. Board President, we have Lauren McHugh. Please state your name and address.
Q 17 Avenue F. I just wanted to take this opportunity to again bring up the special needs students. My point that I wanted to make is to please consider when making these decisions, specifically for the self-contained classes. The children in self-contained classes are already at lower numbers than the rest of the children, typically at half or less. These children need to be in person daily. Everyone's asking the question of when are they coming back? My concern is to what capacity will they be brought back? These, again, the classrooms are already at half the numbers, typically sometimes less. There's no health or emotional benefit in an abbreviated schedule for these self-contained children. Our children normally have extended school year, and it's for a reason. They need more time in the classroom. They should not be lumped with the needs of the typical students because we never do this during the school year. These are a unique group of kids with different needs, and they need to be treated as such. So I echo Katie when I say that I implore you not only to get these kids back into the building, they need maximum time in the school setting. I'm not an educator, I am not a special needs teacher, and this town is doing a tremendous disservice to these children in an already limited number class if they are not permitted to attend all days that the buildings are open. And I just thought I wanted to add, Marianne made a great quote at the beginning of her presentation, and she said, goals without plans are a wish. You cannot wish us back to school. We need plans, backup plans, and backup to the backup plans. The plans we have now are loose with too many variables. We need to tighten this up and say if then. So it's great that we have a plan if every moon lines up correctly. We need to move on to what if they don't. But again, my true and my specific ask is, has it been determined or discussed whether the special needs and self-contained students will attend daily in the building?
Dr. Albert?
Yes, we have had those discussions, and that is part of the staffing discussion, is making sure that we can bring the students in. It's also making sure, and you're right, many of our special needs classes have low numbers because that's what's required by the statute. But we also have classes that have larger numbers. So depending on the classification of the class, it depends on how many students can be in a classroom. So for example, LLD students, we can have up to 16 students in a class. I can't have 16 students in some of our classrooms. So we are looking at all of those pieces. That's something that Marietta Ruella and Randy Flom are looking at daily. And our hope is to get students back in as quickly as we can when it's safe, and also making sure that they're in for the maximum amount of time. Specifically, some of our autistic classes have 6 students as a maximum in the class, that we can probably bring them back 5 days a week. So we are looking at each individual class, each individual self-contained class, and then resource room and ICR classes.
And have we looked at utilizing other rooms within the building, such as the music rooms, the art rooms, the cafeteria, rooms that really won't be needed once we return? If we're on half-day schedule, we certainly won't be using the cafeteria that could potentially accommodate an LLD class. The specials teachers, to decrease the potential rate of transmission, they should be going from room to room, seeing the students versus the other way around to prevent the students' movement through the day. So theoretically, the music room should be empty, art should be empty. Some of these larger rooms that maybe are not typically used as a classroom could potentially be repurposed for a special needs class that is on the larger size, correct?
Yes, you are correct. However, not every school has those rooms because we're already at capacity with our classrooms.
They all have
Yes,
cafeterias.
right. We are looking, Yeah, we are looking at that. We're also looking at cafeteria as part of our Falcon Care program too. So yes, you're absolutely right. We're looking at all available space.
Time. We have to move on. Mr. Gross.
Mr. Board President, we have Betty Saab. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Betty Saporito, 2 Barrymore Drive. I just have a question with regard to Ms. DeMayo's presentation for curriculum. She mentioned unified music, but I was on the curriculum meeting and I heard about the unified family and consumer sciences. So could you clarify, is there also a unified music that came up at curriculum? Because I missed a part of the curriculum meeting, so I want to clarify.
I think when Ms. DeMayo was giving her report, what she did is she was talking about the specific unified elective class, the applied arts. What's the word? Family and consumer science and applied arts. When she mentioned that, she mentioned the 4 unified classes that are currently available at the high school, the 4 unified electives, one of them being the music elective.
Okay, thank you. And then my last thing is just a statement about a caller that called in about 2 of the board members not wearing masks. There actually is an exclusion to that for certain medical conditions. So I'm certainly not going to ask those board members if they have medical conditions. It's none of my business, but I think we keep that in mind. And Mr. Ryback had his mask off for a period of time as well. So I think we need to be considerate that there are some exceptions to some of these rules. That's all.
I didn't realize it was off at the time, so I fixed it when I realized it. It was totally innocent. I think that we need to set an example. I don't know, health reasons or something else, but otherwise, it's mandatory, and we have to set an example. Mr. Gross.
Mr. Board President, we have Leonard Baskin. Please state your name and address for the record.
Leonard Baskin, 119 Diamond Spring Drive.
Councilman.
Hi, I am interested in knowing a couple things. I've seen that talk about using UV devices to sanitize spaces, and I was wondering if the school has any plans or if it's even economically practical to do something like that in the schools.
Mr. Ryback?
Yeah.
Mr. Baskin, could you repeat what type of devices again? We didn't hear you.
They're UV devices.
UV.
They use them in airplanes, and I've seen that they have them now for homes.
Yes, Mr. Ryback? Mr. Baskin, we heard from a vendor who presented at the Building Grounds Transportation Committee a UV lighting system for all of the HVAC systems. We did review that at committee, and we got a price proposal from the other vendor instead.
So,
is that correct?
Are they in use or are they not?
They are not. They are not. Either initiative, whether it was the ionization or the UV lighting, had estimates about $1 million to implement at our school. So that's not an easy initiative just to fit in.
Uh-huh. There wouldn't be grant money to do that?
COVID approved. The UV isn't COVID approved.
I'm sorry. Am I still on?
Hold on, Mr. Tufan, could you say that? I don't think we understood.
The UV product that we had the vendor come in could not confirm that the light was effective against COVID. So we brought in another vendor whose product can prove to be effective against COVID, and we're going to be getting, well, we did get some prices, but it's very expensive, and we're trying to figure out how we could pay for it.
Okay. All right.
UV lighting didn't get government approval as far as being effective. I think that was it.
Okay. I have another question. First, I'd like to commend the board for sending a letter to the developers. And who are the developers that you are planning to send it to?
Well, I believe it's Toll Brothers, JSM, Lennar, and Hovnanian.
Okay. And I had conversations with Dr. Lehman occasionally about a foundation that the school district has And is that correct, or am I just misinterpreting?
No, we've spoken in the past about the Monroe Ed Foundation, and that still is up and running. We're looking to kind of grow that as well, so we can certainly follow up with more contact information regarding that.
Okay. All right. Keep on doing a good job.
Thank you, Councilman. Mr. Gross, anyone else?
Yes, Mr. Board President, we have our last participant. It's Brian Fabiano. Please state your name and address for the record.
Can you hear me this time?
Yes, I hear you, Brian.
Right. Brian Fabiano, 19 Patricia Place. I'll start off with a couple of comments. I'm glad to see or hear that we want to work on boardsmanship because some of the most recent behavior by some of the incumbent board members here, particularly Kathy, posting out about other board members comes across very unethical in my opinion. And I don't like to see board members fighting board members in public. I mean, it's bad enough that we see it here at these meetings, but then to be posting it on social media is sad. So I'd really like to see this boardsmanship come about. Next comment I have is about, or question I have for Dr. Alvik. Couple of questions. One is, with kids falling behind, I have one of my younger sons who's struggling with the remote learning. And I assume many parents are probably, in similar situations. What do you see in terms of, higher needs for basic skills teachers when these kids come back to school? Will there be a need for more basic skills as kids fall farther behind? Or will there be, revised curriculum to adjust where kids are at, based on kind of a slower progression? Second thing for Dr. Alvik, I'm wondering about securing our virtual learning. I've heard from many parents in the district that said there are constant break-ins into the meetings with kids presenting pornography, cursing, just tons of ludicrous things that I can't imagine would be happening. So how are we securing access to those meetings? So that's another question for you. I have a question about OPRA requests. I've seen a lot of OPRA requests come out. Folks have shared a lot of interest in understanding how the process works. I'm wondering how OPRA requests are audited. In other words, do we have, who fulfills those? I know that Mr. Gorski, handles a lot of those that come through, but who oversees that process to make sure that we're on the up and up and that these OPRA requests are being fulfilled at the highest level of integrity? So that's a question for Mr. Gorski. And then I'll
about a minute and 16, a little over a minute left.
I hope you answer those questions. My final comment is, I think it's a stunt show to rush the legislators to come into town a couple of weeks before the election. No reason why we couldn't wait a little bit longer. So I commend the board members for speaking up on that. I'll let you answer the question.
So with regards to students and need for more basic skills, we will continue to use our NWE MAP assessment, measures of academic progress. We're going to actually be starting that next month with all of our students, so we can identify where all of our students are. And then we work with our building administrators, our teachers, and our district supervisors to identify what standards we're going to need to reinforce, reteach, move into a different place. We take a look at all of that. So that will be an ongoing process. So will we need more basic skills teachers? It will be dependent on what we see in our assessments of all of our students. Virtual learning, we did have a few issues in the beginning of the school year with students Zoom bombing, but we don't even know if it was students or if it was someone from out of district. The high school is aware of it. It has been reported in the cases where it has to do with pornography or anything like that. That gets reported to the police also. And since then, a lot of our teachers have instituted utilizing Schoology conferences, which require students to log in with their actual email address. So that's an ongoing process. We haven't had an issue recently with that. It was the first couple of days of school, and that has been addressed. With regard to open request, I think this is a question for Mr. Gorski. It's actually our board attorney who oversees that whole process.
Mr. Gorski?
Mr. Ryback, we receive probably 1,000 or more OPA requests every year. And some of the OPA requests could be tens of thousands of documents per request. There are rights and items that should not be contributed in an OPA request that have to be redacted. And it takes a lot of training and adherence to law so that you don't violate anyone's rights by submitting a personnel document out through an OPA request, for example. Every document that is released is reviewed by the board attorney. I am the open public records agent for the school district. It's my responsibility. But every document that goes out is reviewed by a second set of eyes to make sure that it's in compliance with all of the open public records laws, et cetera. Our board attorney is spending, I would say, the majority of her hours per day right now on OPA requests. If there is any complaints where somebody feels that they did not receive a response in accordance with the statutory requirement, or that it wasn't fulfilled properly, their appeal is to the Government Records Council, the New Jersey Government Records Council. Since being the business administrator now for 11 years, the district has had one complaint go to that level and it was dismissed. So I hope that answers your question with regard to OPA.
Thank you, Mr. Gorski. I believe that's it, Mr. Gross. We can close the public forum. Like to announce the next scheduled Board of Education meeting will be October 14th. And I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Ryback, before you do, I'd just like to make a statement, and that should be on the record for the next month's minutes, that it is very important to me, and it should be to the board members, about public participation. We had two people who claimed that they were not recognized at the first public forum for the agenda items. And I also think, I'll have to ask our attorney, but I think it's improper for you just to arbitrarily stop the public forums. Like you just said, that we're going to stop after 4. I don't think we should be doing that. We have our public waiting over an hour in most meetings before they even get a chance to speak. These are stressful times for our students, our parents, and the rest of the community. And I think the public forum, albeit takes us into very late nights, is something specific to It is necessary for our democracy to proceed. And I want us to be very flexible with members of the public. I think, again, they're the ones paying the freight, and we should be respectful of their need to speak.
Let me just say that you might maybe you didn't hear me. I asked Mr. Gross how many were there. If there's anyone else, he said this is our last one, and that's when I said we'll close after this.
Sometimes, if you said he said there was 4, and you said that will be the last after 4. Sometimes somebody else's. We had 99 participants. If someone was asking a question, there might have been a 5th or a 6th based on continue talking. So I just want to be very clear that it's essential for the public to know.
Yeah, I understand that, and I just want to say that in the past, when that happened, they said there was another 1 or 2 people, we let them speak. So I think the public has had their time to speak, and nobody's denying it. Okay, I make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? Mr. Pelori? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? I didn't think so. All right, this meeting is adjourned.